Hello everyone, and welcome to the Ben 10 What Ifs. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Ben 10 awakened the Dragon God Ultra Instinct beyond limb. It's Ben 10 x Charmcaster x Kale, Dragon Ball Super. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Convergence Point. The sky fractured like breaking glass. Ben Tennyson tracked the anomaly through Bellwood's evening rain, his motorcycle cutting through puddles that reflected impossible colors. The GPS coordinates Gwen had sent led him to an abandoned quarry outside city limits, the third-dimensional disturbance this week, but easily the largest. He killed the engine, removed his helmet, and studied the phenomenon. What had started as pinprick-sized tears in reality had evolved into this, a 15-foot vertical crack in the air itself, edges pulsing with energy that didn't belong in this universe. Purples and blues that seemed to absorb light rather than emit it. Physics breaking down at the molecular level. Definitely not your standard Tuesday night alien invasion, Ben muttered, running a hand through his brown hair, now dampened by rain. At 19, Benjamin Tennyson carried himself differently than the cocky 10-year-old who'd first discovered the Omnitrix. 6 feet tall with a lean, athletic build hardened through years of combat, he moved with deliberate purpose. The boyish overconfidence had been tempered, not eliminated, but channeled into Someth. More dangerous. A calculated assurance born from experience. The Omnitrix on his wrist was sleeker now, having evolved alongside its bearer. Black and green with touches of white, it hummed softly as Ben approached the rift. Almost as if responding to the strange energies. Any readings, partner? He asked, lifting his wrist toward the anomaly. The Omnitrix's display flickered with unfamiliar patterns. Unknown energy signature detected. Composition analysis inconclusive. Dimensional variance detected. Caution advised. When isn't it? Ben replied, moving closer despite the warning. The rain around the rift behaved strangely, droplets hanging suspended before vanishing entirely. The air tasted metallic, charged with ozone and something else. Something ancient and powerful that Ben couldn't identify. He activated his communicator. Rook, you seeing this? His Ravanagander partner's voice came through clearly despite the interference. Indeed, the energy readings are unlike anything in Plummer records. The dimensional variance is increasing by 17% every minute. Any sign of what's causing it? Negative. However, I am detecting similar but smaller anomalies appearing across the sector. Whatever this phenomenon is, it appears to be spreading. Ben circled the rift, careful to maintain distance. I'm going to try something. Stand by. He cycled through the Omnitrix's holographic display, selecting an alien form suited for energy analysis. Let's see what feedback can tell us about this thing. The familiar green flash enveloped him as his DNA temporarily rewrote itself. When the light faded, the conductoid's black body with white lightning patterns stood where Ben had been. Plug-like appendages extended from his fingertips, head, and antennae. All right, let's see what we're dealing with, feedback said, extending his energy-absorbing appendages toward the rift. The moment they made contact, something unexpected happened. Instead of absorbing the energy, feedback felt it surge into him with such force that he staggered backward. The energy wasn't just powerful, it was fundamentally different from anything he'd encountered before. It didn't flow like electricity or radiation. It moved with purpose, with intent, as if it were partially alive. What the? He gasped as the energy coursed through his form, causing the Omnitrix symbol on his chest to flicker between green and a brilliant blue-white. Within his consciousness, Ben felt the Omnitrix's systems rapidly recalibrating, attempting to catalog and adapt to the unknown energy. The sensation was overwhelming, like trying to contain an ocean in a drinking glass. A voice that wasn't quite the Omnitrix's standard tone spoke in his mind. Divine energy signature detected. Initiating God Key compatibility protocol. God Key, feedback managed to say before being driven to his knees by another surge. The rift pulsed, expanding momentarily before contracting. The motion sent a shockwave that threw feedback backward, severing his connection to the energy. He crashed into the rocky quarry wall, debris raining down around him. As he struggled to stand, the Omnitrix timed out with a distinctive beep, reverting him to human form. But something was different. The device's normally green display now pulsed with occasional flickers of blue-white light, the same color as the energy from the rift. Ben, your vitals just spiked dramatically, Rook's concerned voice came through the communicator. Are you injured? Ben examined himself, noting the strange tingling sensation coursing through his body. I'm okay, but something happened to the Omnitrix. It mentioned God Key, and some kind of compatibility protocol. God Key. I am unfamiliar with this term. That makes two of us, Ben replied. Studying the modified Omnitrix. Whatever it is, it seems to have. His words were cut short as the rift suddenly expanded with a thunderous crack. The dimensional tier widened, its edge just stabilizing into a defined oval shape. Through it, Ben could see what appeared to be another world, a rocky landscape under a strange purple sky with multiple moons visible despite the apparent daylight. And then, someone stepped through. A young woman emerged from the rift, stumbling slightly as her feet touched Earth's soil. She appeared to be around 20, with long black hair tied back in a ponytail and striking dark eyes that immediately scanned her surroundings with nervous intensity. She wore unfamiliar clothing, a red top that left her midriff exposed and baggy purple pants, all made from a material Ben couldn't identify. Her build was athletic but not imposing, though something about her presence suggested contained power. When she spotted Ben, she immediately tensed, adopting a defensive stance that belonged to no martial art he recognized. Who are you? She asked, her voice soft but firm, with an accent Ben couldn't place. Did you create this distortion? Ben raised his hands in a non-threatening gesture. Name's Ben Tennyson. And no, I'm trying to figure out what caused it, same as you, I'm guessing. The woman studied him with wary eyes, not relaxing her stance. I am Kale. This isn't Universe 6. Universe 6, Ben repeated. No, this is Earth, Universe. He paused, realizing he'd never needed to specify which universe before, whatever number ours is. Kale's eyes widened slightly, a completely different dimensional plane. The energy readings were correct. She looked back at the rift, which had begun to fluctuate again. Something is causing our universes to intersect. Any idea what? Ben asked, slowly lowering his hands. Despite her obvious caution, he didn't sense hostile intent. No, we detected massive energy disturbances that didn't match any known pattern. Khalifah Sand sent me to investigate while Kale trailed off, her attention suddenly shifting to the Omnitrix, which had begun pulsing more brightly. That device, it's resonating with the dimensional energy. Ben glanced at his wrist. Yeah, it had some kind of reaction when I tried to analyze the rift. Mentioned something about God Key. The F.A. Court of those two words on Kale was immediate and dramatic. Her posture stiffened, and her eyes widened with unmistakable recognition. You know about God Key. How could someone in this universe? She stopped mid-sentence. Her gaze intensifying. Let me sense you. Before Ben could ask what she meant, Kale closed her eyes in concentration. When they opened again, they held a mixture of confusion and astonishment. Impossible, she whispered. Your energy signature is unlike anything I've ever felt. It's human, but there's something else. Multiple energy patterns, and beneath them all, a trace of divine energy awakening. Ben was about to respond when his communicator activated again. Ben, Rook's voice was tense. Multiple smaller rifts are opening across Bellwood. Unknown entities are emerging from them. They appear to be attacking civilians. On my way, Ben replied automatically, then hesitated, looking at Kale and the still active major rift. But what about? I'm coming with you, Kale stated, her voice suddenly more decisive. If these dimensional breaches are connected, I need to understand what's happening. Our universes may both be at risk. Ben nodded, not having time to argue. Can you keep up with a motorcycle? For the first time, a slight smile appeared on Kale's face. I can do better than that. A soft white aura briefly surrounded her body as she levitated several inches off the ground. The air around her shimmering with energy. Okay, that's cool, Ben admitted, genuine impression in his voice. Follow me. As they raced toward Bellwood, Ben on his motorcycle and Kale flying effortlessly alongside, the rain intensified, now accompanied by unnatural wind patterns that swirled around the smaller rifts appearing in the sky. So you're not from around here, Ben called over the wind. stating the obvious to break the ice. What's Universe 6 like? Similar to this world in some ways, Kale replied, her voice somehow carrying despite the conditions. But our Earth was destroyed long ago. I'm from a planet called Sadala. And everyone there can fly. No, I'm a Saiyan. We're warriors with particular abilities. Before Ben could ask for clarification, they crested the hill overlooking downtown Bellwood, where the situation immediately demanded their full attention. 3 distinct rifts had opened above the city center, smaller and the quarry anomaly but still substantial. From each emerged humanoid figures with chrome-like skin that reflected their surroundings in distorted patterns. They moved with unnatural fluidity, almost as if time functioned differently for them. The Chronos Collective, Kale whispered, her expression darkening. They exist between dimensions. We've encountered them before. Never heard of them, Ben replied, parking his motorcycle and scanning the chaos below. The chrome beings were methodically targeting electronic infrastructure, power stations, communication towers, and strangely, any clocks or timepieces they encountered. What do they want? Time, Kale said simply. They harvest it, disrupt it, feed on its distortions. If they're here, this dimensional convergence is worse than I feared. Ben processed this information quickly, already cycling through his mental catalog of alien transformations. Well, let's see how they handle being out of time themselves. Ready to make some new friends. Without waiting for an answer, he activated the Omnitrix. The holographic display appeared, but the alien silhouettes were different, each one outlined with the same blue-white energy he'd seen before. What the? He started, then decided questions could wait. He selected a familiar form and slammed down the dial. The transformation began normally with the flash of green light, but midway through, blue-white energy surged through the process. When it cleared, Ben had become XLR-8, the Kinesolaran speedster, but with noticeable differences. His usually blue and black skin now deep patterns of glowing blue-white energy running through it like circuits. The wheel-like structures on his feet pulsed with the same energy. Whoa, he said, his voice retaining its XLR-8 qualities but with an echoing undertone. This is new. Kale stared at him, clearly shocked. You transformed. And that energy signature, it's definitely influenced by God Ki. Tell me about it later, XLR-8 replied, lowering his visor. Right now, we've got company. 3 chrome beings had noticed them and were now advancing, moving in strange staccato bursts as if skipping frames in a video. Up close, IR features were even more unsettling. Where faces should be, they had only reflective surfaces that showed distorted versions of whoever looked at them. Kale's aura flared brighter as she dropped into a combat stance. They're dangerous. Don't let them touch you directly. They can accelerate your personal timeline, aging you in seconds. Speed against time manipulators. Challenge accepted, XLR-8 replied, then burst into motion. What followed demonstrated why Ben Tennyson had survived 9 years as a hero. Even with his enhanced speed, the chrome beings were formidable opponents, their why time-skipping movements making them unpredictable. But Ben's experience showed in his approach. He didn't simply rely on his alien's abilities but adapted his tactics to the situation. He created a vortex around one entity, careful to maintain distance while using the wind force to disrupt its movements. When another tried to flank him, he used the quarry environment strategically, maneuvering so the being crashed into a rock formation instead of him. Meanwhile, Kale proved herself equally capable. Her fighting style combined disciplined martial arts with bursts of energy, golden ki blasts that she fired with precision. What she lacked in raw power, she compensated for with technical skill and careful timing. They're trying to reach the center of the city, Kale called out after dispatching one of the beings, which dissolved into metallic liquid before vanishing entirely. XLR-8 nodded, dispatching his opponent with a final cyclonic maneuver. Any idea what they're after specifically? In my universe, they targeted temporal nexus points, places where time flows more significantly. Do you have anything like that here? XLR-8 thought quickly. The central chronometer at Bellwood University's physics department. They've been experimenting with precise time measurement at the quantum level. That would be a feast for them, Kale confirmed grimly. They raced toward the university campus, where the situation had deteriorated further. More chrome beings had emerged, overwhelming campus security. Students fled in panic as the entities converged on the physics building. XLR8 tapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. Rook, we're at Bellwood University. The entities are targeting the Central Chronometer project. Get back up here now. En route, came the reply. 4 minutes. We don't have 4 minutes. Kale observed, watching as the chrome beings phased through the walls of the physics building. Then I need something with more hitting power than speed, XLR8 decided. Touching the Omnitrix symbol again. The transformation washed over him, and this time he emerged as 4 arms, the Tetraman powerhouse, but again with the blue-white energy patterns flowing through his red skin, making his 4 eyes glow with unusual intensity. This god key thing definitely has some kick to it, 4 arms noted, feeling strength beyond his usual transformation surging through him. Let's see what it can do. They crashed through the doors of the physics building, following the sound of destruction to the laboratory that housed the Central Chronometer, a massive apparatus of precisely arranged atomic clocks and quantum measurement devices. Inside, they found a dozen chrome beings arranged in a circle around the machine, their bodies slowly melding with its structure. The air in the room felt thick and distorted, with visible waves of temporal energy rippling outward. They're creating a temporal extraction point, Kale explained quickly. If they complete it, Hale be able to drain time energy from this entire region. Not happening, 4 arms declared, slamming all 4 fists together with a shockwave that cracked the floor tiles. The battle that followed was chaotic and strangely beautiful. The chrome beings moved in and out of sync with normal time, sometimes appearing to stand still while covering great distances, other times moving so rapidly they left afterimages. 4 arms countered with raw power enhanced by the mysterious god key, each impact sending shockwaves of blue-white energy cascading through the laboratory. Kale fought with increasing confidence. Her technique precise. When 3 entities cornered her, she revealed another ability. Her body briefly glowed green before her muscle mass increased and her hair shifted to a greenish hue. The transformation lasted only seconds but allowed her to break free with a powerful energy wave. You okay? 4 arms called, noticing her subsequent exhaustion. Yes, she replied, breathing heavily. Just conserving energy. Full transformation isn't necessary yet. 4 arms was about to question what she meant when the leader of the chrome beings, distinguished by intricate patterns flowing across its surface, spoke for the first time. Its voice sounded like multiple people talking at once, at different speeds. The convergence progresses as required. The wielder has been identified. It pointed directly at the Omnitrix symbol on 4 arms' chest. The divinity catalyst acquired. Chronos rises. 4 arms and Kale exchanged a quick glance of confusion before the being continued. Synchronization imminent. All timelines feed the collective. Without warning, all the chrome beings suddenly flowed toward each other, merging into a pulsing mass of reflective material that engulfed the central chronometer. The combined entity grew, absorbing the machine's components and stretching toward the ceiling. That can't be good, 4 arms muttered, backing up. Any ideas? Kale's expression was grim. They're creating a chronal anchor point, stabilizing their presence in this dimension. We need to disrupt the merger before it completes. 4 arms nodded. Hit it with everything, on my mark. He slammed the Omnitrix symbol again, transforming into Atomics, one of his most powerful aliens. The blue-white god key energy now swirled around his nuclear form like orbiting electrons, intensifying the glow of his internal chambers. Ha-amina ha-amina ha-amina. Atomics chanted, gathering energy between his hands that combined his nuclear power with the new divine energy. The resulting sphere pulsed with contradictory forces, destruction and creation intertwined. Beside him, Kale summoned her power, green energy building round her hands as she focused her key into a concentrated beam. Now, Atomics commanded. They unleashed their attacks simultaneously. Atomics' nuclear god fusion, blast and Kale's emerald energy struck the chrome mass from different angles. The resulting collision created a blinding flash and a concussive force that blew out every window in the building. When the light faded, the chrome mass had been disrupted. Its components scattered across the laboratory in liquid puddles that hissed and steamed. The central chronometer was in ruins, but the immediate threat appeared neutralized. Did we get them all? Atomics asked, scanning the debris. Kale closed her eyes, seeming to sense energies beyond normal perception. They're retreating, for now. The anchor point was destroyed before it fully stabilized. The Omnitrix symbol beeped, and Atomics reverted to Ben in a flash of green and blue-white light. The transformation seemed to have taken more out of him than usual. He leaned against a damaged console, catching his breath. So, he said after a moment, want to explain what just happened? Starting with this God Key business and why those Chrome guys called me, the wielder. Kale's expression remained serious as she helped Ben to a relatively intact chair. God Key is divine energy, the power used by gods and those trained to access higher dimensions of existence. In my universe, only a handful of beings can sense or use it. She gestured to the Omnitrix. Somehow, your device has tapped into it. And these Chronos whatever. Chronos Collective, Kale corrected. They exist beyond normal time. We've encountered them in Universe 6, but only briefly. They typically avoid direct confrontation unless, she hesitated. Unless what? Unless something has disrupted the multiverse's stability. They feed on temporal distortions. Her eyes met his directly. Something is causing our universes to converge, and it's attracting their attention. Before Ben could respond, the sound of approaching sirens indicated Rook and Plumber backup had finally arrived. Through the broken windows, they could see the distinctive vehicles with their red and blue lights pulling up outside. My partner's here with reinforcements, Ben explained, standing up with effort. They'll help secure this area. But we need to figure out what's causing these rifts. Kale nodded in agreement, then tensed suddenly, her attention drawn to the ceiling. Another energy signature, different from the collective. Magical in nature. Ben followed her gaze just as a swirling portal of magenta energy opened near the damaged skylight. A figure floated down through it. A young woman with striking silver hair and glowing pink eyes, wearing a purple cloak over ornate magical garments. Aka, nay symbols briefly flashed in the air around her before fading. Charmcaster, Ben identified, his tone cautious but not immediately hostile. Their history was complicated. Former enemies who had OCC occasionally found themselves reluctant allies. Tennyson, she replied, her voice carrying its characteristic blend of confidence and wariness. Her gaze shifted to Kale, then to the destroyed laboratory. I see you've already met our visitors. Both kinds. You know about what's happening? Ben asked, straightening despite his fatigue. Charmcaster, or Hope Ledger, as she now sometimes called herself, made a fluid gesture with her hand, creating a small magical construct that displayed ley lines of energy crisscrossing between different colored spheres. The dimensional barriers are weakening, she explained, her tone more professional than Ben remembered. Magical energy is flowing between realms that should never connect. Legerdemain's borders are becoming unstable. She turned to Kale with evaluating eyes. You're from beyond the conventional dimensional spectrum. Universe 6, based on your energy signature. Kale blinked in surprise. You can sense that. I've been studying interdimensional magic for years. Charmcaster replied with a hint of pride. The question is, what brought you through the rift? Accident or purpose? Investigation. Kale answered simply. Similar dimensional disturbances appeared in my universe. I was sent to discover their source. Charmcaster nodded, then turned back to Ben. And you, Tennyson, your energy signature has changed. The Omnitrix appears to have adapted to something unusual. Ben glanced at the device, which continued to occasionally pulse with blue-white light alongside its normal green. It happened when I tried to analyze the rift. Something about God Key compatibility. The effect of these words on Charmcaster was similar to Kale's earlier reaction, immediate recognition tinged with disbelief. Divine energy, she whispered, moving closer to examine the Omnitrix. The ancient texts mentioned such power, but I never thought. She looked up at Ben's face with new intensity. This changes everything. Mind filling me in on what everything is? Ben asked, his patience wearing thin with cryptic reactions. Before Charmcaster could answer, Rook burst into the laboratory, prototool at the ready. The Ravanagonder quickly assessed the situation, noting the two women with Ben and the destruction around them. Ben, are you injured? He asked, keeping his weapon lowered but ready. I'm fine, partner. Meet Kale from Universe 6 and, well, you remember Charmcaster. Rook nodded cautiously to both. The rifts across Bellwood have begun to stabilize, but more are appearing globally. Plumber Base's World W. I'd are reporting similar entities emerging. The Chronos Collective, Kale provided. They're drawn to temporal disturbances. And the bigger question is what's causing those disturbances in the first place, Charmcaster added, dispelling her magical construct with a wave of her hand. Something is deliberately weakening the walls between dimensions. Ben looked between the three of them, then at the Omnitrix on his wrist. Whatever had happened when he touched the rift, it was clear the Omnitrix had become a key piece of this dimensional puzzle. We need to regroup, he decided, taking charge naturally. Rook, contact Grandpa Max and get Gwen and Kevin in on this. We need all hands on deck. He turned to Kale and Charmcaster. If you're both willing, we could use your expertise. This affects all our worlds. Kale nodded without hesitation. I'll help however I can. And I should contact Caulifla Sands soon, if communication between universes is possible. It might be, Charmcaster mused, already considering magical possibilities. With the barriers thinned, conventional communication spells might breach the gap. As they began to exit the damaged building, Ben felt the Omnitrix pulse again. More strongly this time. Looking down, he saw new alien silhouettes appearing in its database, forms he didn't recognize, with energy signatures unlike his usual transformations. Whatever's happening, he said quietly. I think it's just getting started. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the sky remained ominous. Where there had been one moon, now three were faintly visible. Two of them translucent as if not fully materialized in this reality. The air smelled of ozone and something else, something ancient and powerful. As they made their way to the plumber vehicles, CIT. Eisens pointed skyward and took photos of the impossible celestial anomaly. News crews had already arrived, their cameras capturing the beginning of what Ben suspected would be a crisis unlike any he'd faced before. Tennyson, Charmcaster said quietly as they walked, falling into step beside him. If the Omnitrix has truly interfaced with divine energy, there's something you should know. I'm listening. In the oldest magical texts, there are references to a power called the Dragon God, a force of creation and destruction that exists beyond conventional dimensions. If that power has somehow connected to the Omnitrix. She left the implication hanging. Great, Ben sighed, just when I thought I had this hero thing figured out. Despite his weary tone, there was no mistaking the determination in his eyes. Whatever came next, whatever this dimensional convergence meant, he would face it head on. It's what he'd always done. As they drove away from the university, none of them not iced the small puddle of chrome liquid that had been overlooked in the laboratory. It pulsed once, twice, then seeped into a crack in the floor, disappearing into the earth below. Within the liquid, a tiny reflection showed not the room around it, but a massive being with glowing eyes watching from another dimension entirely. The wielder awakens, whispered a voice from nowhere and everywhere at once. The harvest approaches. Miles away, in the basement of an antiquarian bookshop, a leather-bound volume on a dusty shelf began to glow with the same blue-white energy that now infused the Omnitrix. Its pages flipped open of their own accord, stopping at an illustration of a massive dragon-like entity wreathed in divine fire, locked in battle with a being composed of fractured time itself. The book's ancient text rearranged itself, forming new words in an equally ancient language. The dragon god rises. The god of time responds. The convergence begins. And throughout Bellwood, throughout all of Earth, people looked up at the impossible sky and felt, for the first time, that their universe was not as alone as they had always believed. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2 Echoes Across Dimensions. Dawn broke reluctantly over Bellwood, golden light struggling through clouds that shouldn't exist in Earth's atmosphere. Iridescent purple and blue streaks marbled the stratosphere, while three moons, only one of which belonged to this reality, hung faintly visible despite the morning sun. In the briefing room of Plumber headquarters, holograms displayed global reports of dimensional anomalies. 37 confirmed rifts across 6 continents, with hundreds of smaller temporal disturbances appearing and disappearing like quantum hiccups. Magenta indicators marked Chronos' collective sightings, their numbers growing hourly. Ben Tennyson stood before the central holotable, one hand absently rubbing the Omnitrix, which continued its occasional pulses of blue-white energy. He hadn't slept. None of them had. The largest concentration of rifts appears here, Rook said, highlighting a region in North America's Pacific Northwest. Satellite imaging shows unusual energy signatures. Ben. Ethan abandoned research facility registered to a subsidiary of the Forever Knights. That tracks, Gwen Tennyson noted, her violet eyes reflecting the holographic light. The redhead's academic demeanor had only sharpened during her university years, but exhaustion showed in the slight slouch of her shoulders. The Knights have been experimenting with interdimensional technology since their schism 3 years ago. Kevin Levin leaned against the wall, arms crossed over his chest. Yeah, but they've never had the juice to punch holes between universes before. Something's changed. Many things have changed, Kale said quietly from where she stood slightly apart from the group. The Saiyan warrior had spent hours helping them understand her universe, Universe 6, and its relationship to the current crisis. She'd adapted quickly to Earth's environment, but the subtle alienness in her mannerisms remained evident. The barriers between dimensions have been thinning for months in my world. We believed it was isolated to our universe until now. Charmcaster's fingers traced arcane symbols in the air, leaving glowing trails that formed a complex magical algorithm. Her silver hair was tied back pragmatically, her usual dramatic flair subdued by the gravity of their situation. The magical disturbances follow a pattern, she observed, her tone professional despite the lingering tension between her and the Tennyson cousins. Years of enmity couldn't be erased overnight, but the current crisis demanded cooperation. Something is systematically testing the dimensional barriers, looking for weak points. Magister Tennyson, Max, entered the room with a tablet displaying new data. At 66, the veteran plumber moved with the same purpose and authority he always had, though newly. NES had etched themselves around his eyes. We've confirmed unusual activity at the Forever Knights facility, he said without preamble. Energy signatures consistent with the rifts, but more controlled. And there's something else. He transferred the data to the main display. We're picking up a unique biometric signature that matches someone in our database. The hologram shifted to display a familiar face, a young woman with blonde hair and green eyes. Eunice. Ben straightened, surprise evident in his voice. The Omnitrix. You know her? Kale asked. Ben nodded. She's complicated. Basically a sentient version of the Omnitrix's core system given human form. Azimuth created her as a prototype before the Omnitrix. Her signal appeared 24 hours ago, Max continued. Right when the first rifts were detected. Given her connection to Omnitrix technology and the current situation with Ben's device. It can't be coincidence, Gwen finished. The Knights must have captured her. Possibly trying to use her to stabilize the rifts they're creating. Ben's expression hardened. Then we need to get her out. Now. Agreed, Max said, but this requires stealth. The Phase C. Lydia is heavily shielded. We can't teleport in, and a frontal assault would give them time to move Eunice or worse. I can create a distraction, Charmcaster offered, surprising everyone. When they looked at her questioningly, she shrugged. The Knights have stolen magical artifacts from Legerdemain before. This isn't entirely altruistic. Kevin and I can approach from the south, Gwen suggested. I can sense Eunice's mana signature once we're close enough. Rook and I will take point, Ben decided, then glanced at Kale. Would you be willing to come with us? Your energy sensing abilities could be useful. Especially if there are more Chronos Collective members around. Kale nodded without hesitation. Of course. Good, Max approved. You move in 1 hour. Gear up and prepare. If the Knights are behind these rifts, they may have technology we haven't encountered before. As the group dispersed to prepare, Ben approached Kale, who stood studying Earth's modified sky through a window. Hey, he said, coming to stand beside her. You holding up okay? Being stuck in an entirely different universe can't be easy. Kale turned to him with a small, appreciative smile. I'm adapting. Your world is interesting. Less chaotic than I expected, despite the current crisis. Trust me, we have plenty of chaos on normal days too. He glanced at the Omnitrix. Speaking of which, why? Oh, you seemed to recognize this God Key thing immediately. In your universe, is it common knowledge? No, she replied, her voice lowering slightly. Only a few beings can even sense God Key, let alone use it. It's the energy of creation and destruction, divine power beyond mortal comprehension. Her dark eyes studied the device on his wrist. For your Omnitrix to suddenly attune to it, it shouldn't be possible without specific training or divine intervention. The Omnitrix has always been full of surprises, Ben remarked with a hint of pride. But this feels different. When I transformed yesterday, my aliens had new abilities, enhanced powers, and new limitations, possibly, Kale cautioned. Divine energy isn't simply more power, it operates by different rules. It could be dangerous if not properly controlled. Ben was about to respond when Rook approached, carrying additional equipment. We should depart soon, the Ravanagonder advised. I have prepared the Prototroop with stealth modifications. 20 minutes later, they were airborne, flying low over forest-covered mountains toward the Knight's facility. Gwen and Kevin followed in Kevin's car, modified with alien tech for off-road capabilities. Charmcaster had disappeared in her own way, promising to rendezvous at the target. The Proto-TRUK's cabin was quiet as they approached, each occupant absorbed in their own thoughts. Rook piloted with characteristic precision, occasionally glancing at the sensors monitoring dimensional stability in the area. Dimensional fluctuations increasing, he reported as they crested a ridge. We are approaching an epicenter of some kind. Ben studied the readouts, then looked to Kale. Are you sensing anything unusual? The Saiyan had her eyes closed in concentration. Yes, multiple energy signatures ahead. Some human, some not. And something else. Her brow furrowed. A familiar presence, but distorted. Eunice, Ben suggested. Perhaps. I wouldn't know her energy signature specifically. But there is something artificial yet alive down there. They landed 2 miles from the facility, concealing the vehicle beneath dense forest canopy. The plan was simple. Approach on foot to avoid detection. Rendezvous with Gwen and Kevin at the southern perimeter, then infiltrate while Charmcaster created her distraction. The forest felt wrong. Ben noticed it immediately as they began their approach. The trees themselves appeared normal, but their shadows stretched in impossible directions, sometimes moving independently of their casters. Occasionally, patches of vegetation flickered, momentarily displaying different species before returning to normal. Reality is thin here, Kale murmured, voicing what they all felt. The barriers between dimensions are being deliberately weakened. Rook scanned the area with his proto-tool. I am detecting traces of chronoton particles, temporal energy residue consistent with artificial wormhole creation. They continued forward cautiously, senses alert for any sign of Knights or Chronos entities. The facility gradually came into view through the trees, a sprawling compound of low concrete buildings surrounded by a high-security fence. Unlike most Forever Knight installations, this one lacked medieval aesthetic, presenting instead a utilitarian modern appearance. Perimeter sensors detected, Rook whispered, indicating nearly invisible devices mounted on trees ahead. Thermal, motion, and something else I do not recognize. Dimensional sensors, Kale suggested. Designed to detect energy signatures from other universes. My presence could trigger them. Ben considered their options. I could go Ghost Freak, phase through and disable them. Unknown if spectral forms will trigger the dimensional sensors, Rook cautioned. Then we go under. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through the holographic display until he found what he needed. The alien silhouettes still carried their blue-white energy outlines. But he was growing accustomed to the sight. Armadillo should do the trick. The transformation washed over him in green light tinged with divine blue. When it cleared, the massive Talpoidon stood before them. But with notable differences. The yellow armored plates now bore intricate patterns of glowing blue-white energy that pulsed in rhythm with his movements. His drill arms hummed WITH power beyond their usual mechanical nature. Whoa, Armadillo's deep voice rumbled with surprise. Definitely got an upgrade. Kale studied him with clear fascination. The divine energy has fully integrated with this form. Your power level just increased exponentially. Let's put it to good use, Armadillo replied, placing his drill hands against the earth. Stand back. With careful precision that belied his massive form, Armadillo began tunneling. The earth parted before him with unusual ease, not just displaced but temporarily phased to a semi-solid state by the divine energy infusing his abilities. Instead of the usual noise and vibration, his drilling created a quiet ripple effect, leaving a smooth tunnel in his wake. Rook and Kale followed close behind as the tunnel extended. Dead beneath the perimeter sensors and toward the facility. Armadillo carefully monitored their depth and direction, ensuring they would emerge at the planned rendezvous point. After several minutes of tunneling, Armadillo paused. We should be directly beneath the southern maintenance building. Gwen and Kevin should be approaching above ground by now. He directed his drilling upward, creating a gentle slope that terminated just beneath the surface. With one powerful but controlled punch, he broke through, creating an opening just large enough for them to emerge one by one. They found themselves in a dimly lit maintenance shed attached to the main facility. Rook immediately secured the area while Armadillo transformed back into Ben with a flash of green and blue light. That was different, Ben commented. Examining the Omnitrix, Armadillo's abilities were enhanced, but it wasn't just more power. It felt like I was manipulating the physical properties of the Earth itself. Quote, God Key allows for matter manipulation at a fundamental level, Kale explained quietly. It's the energy of creation and destruction. It can temporarily redefine physical laws within a limited area. Before they could discuss further, the door to the shed opened silently. Ben and Rook tensed, weapons ready, but relaxed when Gwen and Kevin slipped inside. Took you long enough, Kevin remarked with his characteristic smirk. The Osmosian had one hand on the concrete wall, his body partially covered in the absorbed material. Gwen's eyes glowed faintly violet as she scanned the facility with her mana senses. Eunice is definitely here. I can sense her unique energy signature 2 levels below us. And something else. Her expression grew troubled. There's a void in the center of the facility, an area completely absent of mana. That's not natural. Sounds like our dimensional rift, Ben suggested. No, Gwen corrected. Rifts have chaotic mana signatures. This is an absence. Like someone deliberately created a space where magical energy cannot exist. A violet portal shimmered into existence against the far wall, and Charmcaster stepped through, closing it behind her with a gesture. The Knights have doubled their security since yesterday, she reported without preamble. They've deployed null magic fields around key areas, technology they've never demonstrated before. Something's accelerated their capabilities. Or someone, Kevin added grimly. Ben checked his communicator. We stick to the plan. Charmcaster, your distraction in 5 minutes. The rest of us will use the diversion to infiltrate the lower levels and locate Eunice. What about the dimensional void? Gwen sensed. Rook asked. We'll deal with that after we secure Eunice, Ben decided. She might know what they're doing here anyway. Charmcaster nodded and disappeared through another portal, presumably to position herself for maximum disruptive effect. The remaining team members gathered around Gwen, as she projected a magical map of the facility based on her mana sensing. 2 guard stations between us and the elevator shaft, she indicated. Then 2 more levels down to where they're keeping Eunice. The void is 1 level below that, in what appears to be a central chamber. I'll take point, Ben said, activating the Omnitrix again. After a moment's consideration, he selected Big Chill, th. Necrophrygian's intangibility would be useful for reconnaissance. The transformation proceeded as before, with divine energy integrating into the alien form. The resulting Big Chill retained his th-like appearance but now had intricate frost patterns glowing with blue-white energy across his wings and body. The cold aura surrounding him carried traces of divine presence that caused nearby surfaces to crystallize in beautiful, impossible patterns. Stay close, Big Chill whispered, his voice carrying an ethereal quality it hadn't possessed before. I'll scout ahead. He phased through the wall into the main facility. Immediately assessing the situation, 2 knights in modernized armor patrolled the corridor, their helmets equipped with various scanning technologies. Big Chill remained invisible and intangible, observing their movements and equipment. The knight's armor was different from what he remembered, more streamlined, with glowing circuit-like patterns that reminded him uncomfortably of the divine energy now infusing his transformations. Their weapons were similarly modified, emitting a subtle energy signature that Big Chill's enhanced senses identified as Chronodon-based. He returned to the maintenance shed and reverted to human form. 2 guards with upgraded tech. Their weapons and armor have Chronodon energy signatures, they're using time-based technology. The Chronos Collective, Kale whispered. They must be providing the knights with technology. Why would interdimensional time entities work with human knights? Kevin questioned. Unknown, Rook replied, but regardless, we must proceed with extreme caution. Chronodon-based weapons could potentially disrupt your transformations, Ben. A distant explosion rocked the facility, followed by alarms. Red emergency lights began flashing in the corridor outside. That's our cue, Ben said with a grim smile. Charmcaster's making her entrance. They moved quickly into the main building as the guards ran toward the disturbance. Kevin absorbed the metal from a nearby panel, coating himself in protective armor. Gwen's hands glowed with mana, ready to cast shields or offensive spells as needed. Ook configured his proto-tool to multi-cannon mode, while Kale dropped into a combat stance, a subtle aura beginning to form around her. Ben selected another transformation, Diamond Head. The crystalline, nay Petrosapian that emerged was magnificent, his normally green crystals now interlaced with veins of divine blue-white energy that refracted light in hypnotic patterns. Each movement created cascades of prismatic reflections that briefly distorted the space around him. This way, Gwen directed, leading them toward the elevator shaft according to her mana map. They encountered minimal resistance. Charmcaster's distraction had drawn most of the security forces to the opposite side of the facility. The few knights they did encounter were quickly neutralized. Diamond Head's crystal projections pinned them to walls. Gwen's mana bindings secured them, or Kale's precisely directed energy blasts knocked them unconscious. At the elevator shaft, Rook bypassed the security with practiced efficiency. The system is locked down due to the security alert. We will need to descend manually. Not a problem, Diamond Head replied, creating a crystal platform attached to the shaft wall. All aboard. The group crowded onto the platform, which Diamond Head expanded to accommodate everyone. With a gesture, he created a crystalline track down the shaft wall, allowing the platform to slide downward at a controlled pace. The divine energy infusing his form made the crystal manipulation effortless, the structure stronger and more responsive than ever before. They descended 2 levels before stopping at a heavily secured door. Kevin placed his metal hand against the electronic lock, using his Osmosian abilities to interface with and override the system. The door slid open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing a laboratory corridor beyond. Eunice's signature is stronger now, Gwen confirmed. Straight ahead, 3rd chamber on the right. They moved forward cautiously, encountering no further resistance. The laboratory spaces they passed contained various experiments, most involving technology none of them recognized. Temporal manipulation devices, miniature rifts contained in energy fields, and artifacts that appeared to originate from different dimensions. The knights have been busy, Kevin observed, examining a device that generated a localized time dilation field. This tech is way beyond their usual medieval shtick. Much of this appears to be of Chrono's origin, Kale noted, recognizing certain components. In my universe, similar technology was discovered in ruins dating back millions of years. They reached the 3rd chamber, its entrance secured by a heavy vault-like door with both electronic and mechanical locks. Before they could devise a method to breach it, the locks disengaged on their own. And the door swung open. I was wondering when you'd arrive, came a familiar voice from within. Eunice stood in the center of the chamber, looking exactly as Ben remembered her, blonde hair, green eyes, and the distinctive white and green outfit that echoed Omnitrix coloration. She appeared unharmed, though monitoring devices were attached to her arms and neck. Eunice, Diamond Head said, transforming back to Ben with a flash of light. Are you okay? Are you being held prisoner? A complex expression crossed Eunice's face, something between amusement, concern, and guilt. It's complicated, Ben. I wasn't exactly kidnapped, but I'm not here entirely by choice either. She gestured to the monitoring devices. They're studying me, my connection to the Omnitrix technology. At first, I agreed to help because they said they were researching interdimensional travel for scientific purposes. Then I discovered their actual intent. Which is, Gwen prompted. They're trying to create a stable bridge between dimensions, not just for travel, but to extract energy and technology from other universes. Eunice removed one of the monitoring devices from her arm. When I discovered the truth and tried to leave, they restricted my movements. I've been subtly interfering with their experiments, preventing them from achieving full stability. That explains the rifts, Rook concluded. Failed attempts at creating a permanent bridge. Not entirely failed, Eunice corrected. Each failure was actually a partial success, a temporary bridge that allowed something to cross over. She looked at Kale. Like your arrival, and others. Ben's eyes narrowed. The Chronos Collective. You know about them. I've learned quite a bit during my captivity, Eunice confirmed. The Knights didn't initiate this project on their own. They were approached by an entity that provided the initial technology, an entity that referred to itself as an emissary of Lord Zenith. Kale visibly tensed at the name. Zenith. You're certain that was the name? Eunice nodded. Yes. Does it mean something to you? There are legends in my universe, Kale said slowly, of an ancient being who existed before the gods of destruction, before the angels. An entity called Zenith who sought to unite all dimensions under his control, to harvest their unique energies for some greater purpose. Okay, so we're dealing with an interdimensional conqueror, Kevin summarized. Wouldn't be the first time. It's more than that, Eunice insisted, moving to a control console and bringing up schematics. The Knights believe they're creating technology to benefit themselves, but they're actually constructing components of a much larger device, one designed to forcibly merge dimensional boundaries on a universal scale. The schematics displayed a massive apparatus with multiple nodes connected to a central chamber, the void Gwen had sensed. They've built a prototype in the central chamber below us, Eunice continued. That's where the largest rift is forming. With each test, the dimensional barriers weaken further, allowing more Chronos entities to cross over. It's a cascading effect. Ben studied the schematics with growing concern. So if we shut down their prototype, we might be able to slow the process, but not stop it entirely, Eunice finished. The dimension, weakening has already progressed too far. Multiple rifts are self-sustaining now. A powerful tremor suddenly shook the facility, causing equipment to crash to the floor and lights to flicker. Deuce. Chi rained from the ceiling as the tremor intensified. That's not Charmcaster's distraction, Gwen stated, maintaining her balance with a mana platform beneath her feet. Kale closed her eyes, concentrating. Something's coming through. Something big. Eunice rushed to a monitoring station that remained operational. They're activating the prototype at full power. The void chamber is becoming a dimensional nexus point. We need to shut it down, Ben decided immediately. Eunice, can you guide us to the control systems? I can do better than that, she replied, removing the remaining monitoring devices. I can help you sabotage them. I've been planning this since I realized what they were building. Another, stronger tremor rocked the facility. Structural supports began to crack, and emergency containment systems activated, sealing off sections of the laboratory complex. We need to move now, Rook urged, already at the door checking for Knights. They moved quickly through the increasingly unstable facility, following Eunice's lead toward a maintenance shaft that would take them directly to the level below. The tremors continued at irregular intervals, each one stronger than the last. What exactly is coming through that rift? Kevin asked as they descended a metal ladder. I don't know specifically, Eunice admitted, but based on the energy readings, it's an entity of immense power, comparable to a celestial sapien. That's not good, Ben commented, remembering his encounters with the godlike aliens. They reached the bottom of the shaft and emerged into a darkened corridor lit only by emergency lighting. Ahead, a massive set of doors marked with warning symbols and night insignias sealed off what must be the central chamber. The prototype control systems are in a separate room, Eunice explained, leading them to a smaller door to the right. If we can interrupt the power flow and introduce a feedback loop into the dimensional calibrators, we should be able to force a shutdown. The control room was unmanned, the Knights apparently evacuated during the tremors. Banks of sophisticated equipment lined the walls, monitoring various aspects of the prototype's operation. At the center stood a control console unlike anything Ben had seen before, its technology clearly beyond Earth origin. This is Chronos tech, Kale confirmed, examining the console. Similar to what we discovered in Universe 6. Eunice immediately went to work, her fingers flying over the controls with the precision only a being created from Omnitrix technology could manage. The dimensional bridge is already forming. Energy readings are off the charts. Can you shut it down? Ben asked, watching the monitors with growing concern. One screen showed the central chamber, where a swirling vortex of energy had formed around a ring-like device. The vortex pulsed with colors that hurt the eyes to look at directly. I'm trying, Eunice replied, her expression focused. But something's blocking my commands. The system is being overridden from somewhere else. A new voice spoke from the doorway behind them. I'm afraid I can't allow you to interfere at this critical juncture. They turned to find a knight unlike any they'd seen before. His armor was sleek and modern, with the same circuit-like patterns they'd observed earlier, but much more elaborate. His helmet was removed, revealing a man in his 40s with sharp features and calculating eyes. Dr. Joseph Chadwick, Rook identified. Former Forever King and Chief Scientist. You were reported dead 3 years ago. Reports of my demise were premature, Chadwick replied with a thin smile. I merely transcended to a new understanding of reality, with some assistance. Ben noticed something off Abu. The man. A slight flicker in his movements, as if he wasn't fully present in their timestream. You're working with the Chronos Collective. Working with, Chadwick laughed, the sound unnaturally distorted. No, Mr. Tennyson, I have been blessed by them. Evolved beyond human limitations. He gestured to his armor. This is merely a shell that allows me to interact with your temporal plane. My consciousness now exists partly outside conventional time. You've been manipulated, Gwen stated firmly. Whatever they promised you, they're using you to achieve their own goals. Enlightenment requires sacrifice, Chadwick responded dismissively. The collective showed me the truth. All universes are simply energy sources waiting to be harvested. Lord Zenith offers a purpose to this meaningless multiverse. While they kept Chadwick talking, Eunice continued working at the console, attempting to override the systems. Kale positioned herself subtly, prepared to intercept if Chadwick made a move toward them. And what exactly is this purpose? Ben asked, buying time. Convergence, Chadwick replied, his eyes gleaming with fervor. The unification of all dimensional energy into a singular force under Lord Zenith's control. Imagine it, Tennyson, all reality remade, all paradoxes resolved, all chaos ordered. Sounds more like the end of free will, Ben countered. Chadwick's expression hardened. Your limited perspective was anticipated. As was your interference. He raised his hand, revealing a device embedded in his palm. Unfortunately, the convergence has progressed too far to be stopped. Lord Zenith comes. He activated the device, and a pulse of chronodan energy erupted outward. Time itself seemed to stutter around them, movements becoming difficult as if they were fighting against an invisible current. Localized temporal distortion field, Rook identified, his own movements slowed. He's manipulating our timestream. Ben reached for the Omnitrix, his movements slowed but determined. Let's see how your time tricks handle clockwork. The transformation took longer than usual within the distorted field, but when it completed, the Chronosapian stood unaffected by Chadwick's technology. Like previous transformations, this form was enhanced by divine energy, the gears and mechanisms of Clockwork's body now interlaced with flowing patterns of blue-white light. His pendulum-like head crest pulsing with power that extended beyond mere time manipulation. Fascinating, Chadwick observed. The divine catalyst has indeed bonded with the Omnitrix. The collective's predictions were accurate. Divine catalyst, Clockwork questioned, the gears in his head spinning rapidly as he generated a counter field that neutralized Chadwick's temporal distortion, freeing the others from its effect. You don't even understand what you possess, Chadwick said with something like pity. The Omnitrix was always more than a transformation device, Tennyson. It's a cosm. I see linchpin, a nexus of DNA from across the universe. With the divine catalyst now integrated, it has become the perfect instrument for universal convergence. While Chadwick monologued, Kevin had key. Etley absorbed the metal from a nearby console and now launched himself forward, fist raised to strike. But Chadwick moved with impossible speed, his form briefly phasing out of normal time before reappearing behind Kevin. With a casual gesture, he sent Kevin flying into a wall with a pulse of chronodan energy. Primitive, Chadwick commented. I exist in multiple temporal states simultaneously. Physical attacks are useless. Gwen immediately launched mana discs toward him, while Rook fired his proto-tool in rapid succession. Kale moved with surprising speed, her hands glowing with green ener. As she attempted to flank their opponent. Chadwick handled their coordinated attack with disturbing ease, phasing between temporal states to avoid their strikes. When Kale managed to land a glancing blow, his armor absorbed the energy. redirecting it into the floor where it created a small temporal distortion. Your resistance is noted but irrelevant, he stated calmly. The prototype is already at critical resonance. Lord Zenith approaches. As if summoned by his words, the entire facility shook with the most violent tremor yet. The lights failed completely, plunging them into darkness before emergency systems activated, bathing everything in blood-red illumination. On the monitors still functioning, they watched as the vortex in the central chamber expanded dramatically. The ring device at its center pulsed with power, drawing energy from somewhere beyond conventional space. The rift widened, its edges stabilizing into a defined portal large enough for something massive to pass through. It's happening, Eunice cried over the noise of buckling metal and shattering equipment. The dimensional barrier is collapsing completely. Clockwork moved toward the console, his time manipulation abilities allowing him to process information at accelerated rates. There must be a way to reverse the polarity or disrupt the energy flow. Too late, Chadwick declared with triumphant finality. He comes. The central chamber's monitoring feed showed something emerging from the portal, a massive humanoid figure wreathed in shadows and light simultaneously. Its exact features were difficult to discern, as if it existed in multiple visual spectrums at once, but its presence was undeniable. Power radiated from it in visible waves that distorted the very fabric of reality around it. Lord Zenith, Chadwick whispered reverently. The being fully emerged from the portal, towering at least 12 feet tall. Its body appeared composed of constantly shifting material that resembled both solid matter and pure energy. When it moved, afterimages trailed behind it, as if multiple versions of the same action occurred simultaneously across different timelines. Most disturbing were its eyes, pools of swirling cosmic energy that contained what looked like miniature galaxies. When it spoke, its voice resonated not through the audio systems but directly in their minds. The convergence proceeds as designed. The catalyst has awakened. The wielder has been identified. Its gaze seemed to focus directly through the camera, as if looking straight at Clockwork. The harvest of worlds begins. With those words, the being, Lord Zenith, raised its hand toward the portal behind it. The rift pulsed and expanded further, now filling most of the central chamber. Smaller rifts began opening throughout the facility, visible even through the walls as reality itself thinned around them. We need to evacuate now, Rook urged, helping Kevin to his feet. This entire facility is becoming unstable. Clockwork transformed back to Ben with a flash of green and blue. Not without shutting down that portal somehow. If what Chadwick said is true, the Omnitrix is connected to all this. Maybe I can use that connection. You don't understand what you're dealing with, Chadwick warned, though his tone held more excitement than concern. Lord Zenith exists beyond conventional dimensions. His power dwarfs even celestial sapiens because he is unbound by their laws of consensus. Another violent tremor shook the facility, more severe than any before. Structural supports gave way, and sections of ceiling began to collapse. Ben, we need to go, Gwen insisted, creating a mana shield to protect them from falling debris. Listen to reason, Eunice added. We can't stop this now, but we can regroup and find another solution. Ben looked at the monitor showing Lord Zenith, who had begun manipulating the energies of the expanded rift, somehow weaving them into a complex pattern that stretched outward into the facility and beyond. Fine, he conceded reluctantly. But we're taking him with us. He pointed at Chadwick. He knows more than he's telling us. Kale moved with lightning speed, appearing behind Chadwick before he could react. With a precise strike to a pressure point, she rendered him unconscious. I've neutralized his neural functions temporarily, she explained, lifting his limp form easily despite her smaller stature. But I don't know how long it will last given his altered physiology. Good enough, Ben decided. Rook, what's our fastest exit route? Rook consulted his Proto-Tools mapping function. The facility's structural integrity is failing on all levels. However, there appears to be a night transport bay 2 corridors east that still shows power signatures. Then that's our play, Ben confirmed, activating the Omnitrix again. Everyone stay close. He transformed into XLR8, the speedster form again enhanced with divine energy that left trails of blue-white light as he moved. I'll scout ahead and clear a path. Follow my signal. XLR-8 burst from the room in a blur of motion, navigating the collapsing facility with preternatural precision. The divine energy augmentation enhanced his perception to the point where falling debris seemed to move in slow motion, allowing him to calculate safe paths through the chaos. He reached the transport bay in seconds, finding it mostly intact but abandoned. 3 night vehicles remained, armored transport craft designed for personnel evacuation. XLR-8 quickly checked their systems, Ding 1 with full power and no obvious damage. Returning to the group, who had already begun making their way down the corridor, he reverted to human form. Found us a ride. This way, and hurry. He moved as quickly as possible through the disintegrating facility, with Gwen creating mana platforms to bridge collapsed sections of flooring. Kale carried the unconscious Chadwick, while Rook supported Kevin, who was still recovering from the Chronodon blast. Behind them, the effects of Lord Zenith's arrival continued to spread. Reality itself seemed to be thinning, walls occasionally becoming transparent, revealing other spaces that shouldn't exist in their dimension. Electronic systems flickered between functioning and displaying impossible data in alien languages. They reached the transport bay just as another massive tremor threatened to bring the entire ceiling down. Ben rushed to the vehicle he'd identified, opening its side hatch. Everyone in, now. The group piled into the transport as sections of the ceiling began to give way. Rook immediately took the pilot's position, activating systems with practiced efficiency. The facility's defensive shields are still active, he reported as the engines hummed to life. They will prevent our departure unless deactivated. On it, Eunice said, connecting to the vehicle's communication system. Her eyes unfocused slightly as she interfaced directly with the facility's network, bypassing security protocols, rerouting power from shields to life support, creating emergency override. The transport lifted off the ground as the bay doors above them began to open, revealing the sky, now a chaotic swirl of colors as multiple dimensions bled into each other. Shields disengaged, Eunice announced. We have clearance for vertical departure. Rook piloted the craft upward through the opening, accelerating hard as the facility below them began to collapse in on itself. The transport shuddered as waves of dimensional energy washed over it, instruments temporarily failing before Eunice's presence in the system stabilized them. They cleared the immediate danger zone and gained altitude, allowing them to see the full extent of what was happening. The Forever Knights facility was now the center of a massive dimensional event, a swirling vortex of energy that extended upward into the sky and outward in all directions. Smaller rifts continued to appear across the landscape, some allowing glimpses of alien worlds, others seeming to open into the void between dimensions. That doesn't look like something that's going to fix itself, Kevin observed grimly from a viewport. It's not, Eunice confirmed, her expression troubled. The convergence has begun. Lord Zenith has established a dimensional anchor point that will continue to draw other realities into alignment with ours. Can it be stopped? Gwen asked. Theoretically, yes. The process requires sustained energy input to maintain the convergence. If we could disrupt that energy source or create a counter-resonance field. The Omnitrix, Ben suggested, looking down at the device which continued to pulse with divine energy. Chadwick called it a catalyst. If it's somehow fueling this convergence, maybe it can also reverse it. Possibly, Eunice agreed cautiously. But we'd need to understand exactly how the divine energy interfaces with the Omnitrix's systems. That would require resources we don't currently have. Kale, who had been quietly monitoring their captive, spoke up. Chadwick is regaining consciousness. We should secure him before he fully awakens. Rook set the transport on autopilot and moved to assist, using specialized restraints from the vehicle's security compartment to bind Chadwick to a seat. The former Forever King's eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first before sharpening with awareness. You've made a significant miscalculation, he said without preamble, his voice eerily calm. Removing me from Lord Zenith's presence merely accelerates the timeline. What timeline? Ben demanded. What exactly is the harvest of worlds he mentioned? A thin smile crossed Chadwick's face. The collection and reorganization of dimensional energy. Each universe possesses unique energetic properties, magical, technological, biological. Lord Zenith seeks to harvest these properties and reconstruct reality in a more efficient configuration. By destroying existing universes, Gwen concluded. Not destruction, Chadwick corrected. Transformation. Nothing is lost, merely repurposed. Into what? Eunice pressed. A singular multidimensional construct under Lord Zenith's control. A reality without boundaries, without limitations of space or time. His gaze shifted to Ben. And your Omnitrix, now infused with divine catalyst energy, is the key that makes it possible. Ben's expression hardened. Then I'll find a way to use it against him instead. You cannot oppose a being that exists in all potential realities simultaneously. Chadwick stated with absolute conviction. The convergence is inevitable. The transport suddenly lurched, alarms blaring as systems reported multiple failures. Through the viewports, they could see the sky around them distorting, reality itself becoming unstable. Dimensional shockwave approaching, Eunice warned, interfacing with the transport's sensors. Quote, the convergence effect is expanding exponentially. Rook returned to the controls, fighting to maintain stability as the craft began to shake violently. We cannot outrun it. Impact in 15 seconds. Gwen, can you shield us? Ben asked urgently. I'll try, she replied, her hands already glowing with mana. But I don't know if magical shields will hold against dimensional distortion. Kale stepped forward, her expression resolute. I can help strengthen the barrier. My energy combined with your mana might be enough. As Gwen began constructing a complex spherical shield around the transport, Kale added her own energy, a green aura that flowed from her hands and intertwined with Gwen's magenta mana, creating a composite barrier of remarkable density. The shockwave hit with devastating force, enveloping the transport in chaotic energy that bent light and distorted matter. Inside, the occupants felt reality itself becoming fluid, their perceptions shifting as dimensional constants fluctuated. Hold it together, Ben encouraged as both women strained against the immense pressure. The composite shield flickered but held, though cracks began to form where the energies couldn't fully integrate. Through the viewports, they could see the landscape below transforming, sections of forest appearing and disappearing, replaced by alien terrain or void-like emptiness. The shield won't hold much longer, Gwen gasped, sweat beading on her forehead as she poured more power into the barrier. We just need to reach the edge of the effect radius, Rook said, pushing the engines beyond safety parameters. 3 more kilometers. Ben watched the shield deteriorating and made a quick decision. I have an idea. Keep us airborne for 20 more seconds. He activated the Omnitrix, cycling through options before selecting Alien X, the celestial sapien form. If anything could stabilize their situation, it would be a being capable of reality manipulation. Ben, wait, Eunice called out in alarm. The divine energy infusion might affect the celestial sapien transformation in unpredictable ways. Her warning came too late. Ben had already triggered the transformation, and the familiar green light engulfed him, but immediately shifted to blinding blue-white as the divine energy interacted with the celestial sapien DNA. What emerged was both familiar and utterly new. The Bine G resembled Alien X in basic form, a humanoid shape composed of what appeared to be living space, with stars and cosmic phenomena visible within its body. But where Alien X was primarily black with white star-like dots, this entity radiated blue-white divine energy that flowed like cosmic rivers through the starscape of its form. 2 great wings of pure energy extended from its back, each containing what looked like miniature galaxies. When it spoke, the voice was Ben's, but layered with harmonics that resonated on multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. This form is different. Everyone stared in shock, even Chadwick, whose expression had shifted from smugness to genuine surprise. The divine catalyst has fully integrated with the celestial sapien DNA, he whispered. Impossible. The transformed Ben moved with liquid grace, placing a hand against the failing shield. Where divine energy met mana and ki, a perfect harmonization occurred, stabilizing the barrier instant. TLY and extending it around the entire transport. I can see everything, the being said, its voice reverberating through multiple dimensions. All potential timelines, all possible realities. Ben, Gwen asked cautiously, are you still, you? The cosmic head turned toward her, divine light emanating from where eyes would be. I am Ben Tennyson. And I am more. The personalities of Ali, NX have been harmonized by the divine energy. No debate is necessary for action. This revelation was staggering. Normally, Alien X required consensus between multiple personalities to take any acti on, a limitation that made the form powerful but problematic. This new version appeared to have transcended that restriction. Can you stop the convergence? Eunice asked, hope rising in her voice. He divine celestial sapien considered for a moment, cosmic phenomena swirling within its form. Not yet. Lord Zenith exists beyond even this form's current capabilities. His power draws from all potential realities simultaneously. I would need to fully understand the nature of the divine catalyst to challenge him directly. Then what can you do? Kevin pressed. I can create a temporary sanctuary. Why? A pocket dimension where we can regroup and plan. From there, we can observe the convergence without being affected by it. Do it, Rook decided, abandoning the failing controls as more systems shut down. The divine celestial sapien nodded, raising both hands. The space around the transport began to fold inward, reality itself parting like a curtain to reveal a realm of swirling cosmic energy beyond. With a gesture, the being guided their craft through this opening, which sealed behind them with a silent flash of light. They found themselves floating in a breathtaking space that resembled a nebula, with swirls of cosmic gas and dust in vibrant colors surrounding them. Distant stars provided gentle illumination, and gravity seemed to operate differently, more as a suggestion than a law. Welcome to the sanctuary, the divine celestial sapien announced. Time passes differently here. We can observe the convergence and plan our response. With another gesture, the being created a viewing portal through which they could see Earth, or what Earth was becoming. The convergence had accelerated dramatically, with large sections of reality now overlapping with other dimensions. Where Bellwood had stood, a strange composite city now existed, with architecture from multiple realities awkwardly merged together. It's happening everywhere, Eunice observed with horror. The dimensional barriers are collapsing globally. The divine celestial sapien's form suddenly fluctuated, the blue-white energy pulsing erratically. I cannot maintain this form longer. The divine energy is still stabilizing within the Omnitrix. With a flash of light, the being reverted to Ben, who collapsed immediately to his knees, gasping for breath. The sanctuary dimension remained stable, but the strain on his body was evident. Ben. Gwen rushed to his side, supporting him. Are you all right? Yeah, he managed, though his voice was ragged. That was intense. Like having the entire universe inside my head at once. Eunice scanned him with a device from the transport. Your bio readings are off the charts. The divine energy temporarily overrode your normal physiological limits. What did you see? Kale asked quietly, kneeling beside him. When you were transformed. Ben's eyes held a haunted quality as he looked up at her. Everything. All possible timelines, all potential realities. And in every single one where Lord Zenith succeeds, the multiverse collapses into a singular point of consciousness, his consciousness. Then we have to stop him, Kevin stated firmly. Whatever it takes. From his secured position, Chadwick laughed softly. You still don't understand. Lord Zenith isn't simply conquering reality, he's correcting it. Bringing order to chaotic dimensional fluctuations that have plagued the multiverse since its inception. By destroying free will and diversity, Ben countered, struggling to his feet with Gwen's help. That's not correction, it's tyranny on a cosmic scale. As they argued, the viewing portal showed more changes occurring on Earth. Beings from other dimensions now walked its streets, some peaceful, others hostile. Battles had broken out in major cities between Earth's defenders and creatures that defied conventional biology. And in the center of it all, the focal point where the Forever Knights facility had stood, Lord Zenith's presence continued to expand. Drawing more reality into alignment with his design. We need allies, Rook concluded, watching the chaos unfold. This threat extends beyond our world, beyond even our universe. Agreed, Ben said, his strength gradually returning. Kale, is there any way to contact your universe now that the barriers are thinning? Your friends might be able to help. Possibly, she replied thoughtfully. If the convergence is affecting Universe 6 as well, Khalifah San and the others would be investigating. They might even be trying to reach me. I might be able to help with that. Charmcaster spoke up for the first time since they'd entered the sanctuary. She had been quietly studying their surroundings, assessing the magical properties of the pocket dimension. This pace exists at a nexus point between dimensions. With the right spell, we could potentially send a message across the barrier. Do it, Ben encouraged. We need all the help we can get. As Charmcaster began preparing the necessary magical components, Eunice approached Ben with a concerned expression. There's something else you should know, she said quietly, leading him slightly away from the others. The divine energy the Omnitrix absorbed, it's not just enhancing your transformations. It's evolving them into something new. I noticed, Ben replied dryly. That wasn't any alien X I've ever been before. It's more than that, Eunice insisted. Based on what I can detect, the Omnitrix is integrating the divine catalyst at a fundamental level. It's creating hybrid transformations at combine alien DNA with divine energy matrices. And that's bad. It's unprecedented, she clarified. The potential is enormous, but so are the risks. If the integration becomes unstable, or if the divine energy overwhelms the Omnitrix's regulatory systems. Boom, Ben guessed. More like the complete rewriting of your DNA at a multidimensional level, Eunice corrected grimly. You could be permanently transformed into something beyond human or alien, a divine entity untethered from conventional reality. Ben absorbed this information with remarkable calm. So I either master this new power, or become something else entirely. Wouldn't be the first time I've faced those odds. His casual acceptance seemed to surprise Eunice. You've changed, Ben. The teenager I knew would have been freaking out about now. A small, wry smile crossed his face. 9 years of saving the universe gives you perspective. We deal with the crisis first, existential transformation concerns second. Across the sanctuary, Charmcaster had completed preparations for her interdimensional communication spell. A complex array of magical symbols floated in the air before her, arranged in patterns that bent and twisted in ways that hurt the eyes to follow directly. I need something connected to Universe 6, she explained to Kale. Something that resonates with your home dimension. Kale considered for a moment, then removed a small object from a hidden pocket, a metallic pin with an unfamiliar symbol. This is made from metal mined on planet Sadala. Will it work? Charmcaster examined the pin, then nodded. Perfect. It carries the unique quantum signature of your universe. She placed it at the center of her magical array. Now I need you to focus on the person you wish to contact. Visualize them clearly in your mind. Kale closed her eyes, concentrating on Khalifla's image, her spiky black hair, confident smirk, and fierce eyes. The magical symbols began to glow more intensely, responding to her focus. Connection established, Charmcaster announced, sweat beading on her forehead from the effort of maintaining the complex spell. Speak, and they should hear you. Khalifla-san, Kale called out, her voice stronger and more commanding than usual. Can you hear me? It's Kale. The magical array flickered, static-like distortion rippling through it before stabilizing into something resembling a viewing portal. Through it, they could see a blurry image of a young woman with spiky black hair, her surroundings suggesting a damaged laboratory of some kind. Kale, the VOICE came through with surprising clarity despite the visual distortion. Where the hell have you been? The whole universe is going crazy. I'm in another dimension. Universe. Kale looked questioningly at Ben. Earth. Universe. He began, then realized again that he'd never needed to specify before. Actually, I don't know what number we are. Doesn't matter, Khalifla's voice replied impatiently. The dimensional barriers are collapsing everywhere. Hit's been trying to stabilize things, but it's beyond even his time manipulation abilities. The same is happening here, Kale explained quickly. A being called Lord Zenith has created a convergence point. He's deliberately merging the dimensions. There was a pause before Khalifla responded, her tone suddenly serious. Zenith, you're certain that's the name? Yes, you've heard of him. Vados mentioned him once. Said he was a being from before the gods, who tried to unify all reality under his control. She thought it was just a legend. The image shifted as Khalifla apparently moved to another location. Listen, we've discovered something. The convergence is being powered by energy from multiple dimensions simultaneously. If we can disrupt that energy flow at the source points in each universe, we might be able to stop the convergence, Eunice finished, joining the conversation. But we'd need precise coordinates for each source point. Who's that? Khalifla demanded. Allies, Kale assured her. They're helping me investigate the convergence from this side. The connection began to deteriorate, the image breaking up into fragments of light. Charmcaster strained to maintain the spell, but the energies involved were becoming increasingly unstable. The connection won't hold much longer, she warned through gritted teeth. Kale. Khalifah's voice became urgent as her image fluctuated. Find the divine catalyst in your universe. According to Vedos, Zenith needs 5 divine catalysts, 1 from each of the primary dimensional planes, to complete the convergence. If you can locate and secure yours. The connection abruptly terminated, the magical array collapsing in on itself with a flash of light. That forced everyone to shield their eyes. When they could see again, only Charmcaster's exhausted form remained where the portal had been. Sorry, she managed between heavy breaths. The Dimensio. Null fluctuations are too severe for sustained contact. You did enough, Ben assured her, helping her to a seat. We got valuable information. 5 divine catalysts, Rook repeated thoughtfully. And one of them must be in our universe. All eyes turned to the Omnitrix, which pulsed with blue-white energy as if responding to their attention. The divine energy the Omnitrix absorbed, Eunice concluded. It must be one of the catalysts Khalifah mentioned. Which means Lord Zenith allowed the Omnitrix to absorb it, Gwen added with growing concern. This could be part of his plan. Ben looked down at the device on his wrist with new wariness. Or a mistake on his part. If the Omnitrix can harness this divine energy, maybe it can be used against him. We should focus on locating the source points Khalifah mentioned. Rook suggested pragmatically. If disrupting the energy flow can halt the convergence, that gives us a concrete objective. I might be able to help with that, Eunice offered. During my captivity, I observed energy fluctuations that could correspond to these source points. The Knights were monitoring 7 locations globally where dimensional thinning was most pronounced. 7 locations in our universe alone, Kevin noted. If there are 5 primary dimensional planes as Khalifah mentioned, that's 35 source points across the multiverse, Gwen calculated quickly. We can't possibly address them all. We don't need to, Ben decided, his leadership instincts taking over. If the divine catalyst in the Omnitrix is key to the convergence, then protecting it, and finding a way to use it against Zenith, should be our priority. From his secured position, Chadwick laughed again, a hollow, unsettling sound. You still think in such linear terms. The catalysts aren't objects to be protected or weapons to be wielded. They're nexus points of dimensional reality, fundamental aspects of existence itself. Explain, Ben demanded. Chadwick. CK's eyes gleamed with the light of someone possessed by an idea beyond conventional understanding. The 5 catalysts represent the fundamental forces that bind reality together: space, time, energy, matter, and consciousness. Lord Zenith seeks to harness them all, realigning their properties to create a singular unified dimension under his control. And which catalyst does the Omnitrix contain? Eunice asked. Consciousness. Chadwick replied without hesitation. The Omnitrix contains DNA, the biological code of countless species. DNA is merely information expressed through matter, the physical manifestation of consciousness itself. The implications were staggering. If Chadwick was right, the Omnitrix had somehow absorbed the divine catalyst of consciousness, perhaps the most fundamental force of all. So what are the other catalysts, and where are they? Kevin pressed. The catalyst of time exists within the Chronos collective themselves, it's why Lord Zenith allied with them. Ace is embodied in the dimensional rifts themselves. Energy flows through magical ley lines that connect all realities. And matter. Chadwick's expression became thoughtful. Matter's catalyst remains elusive, even to Lord Zenith. It's why the convergence isn't yet complete. Before they could question him further, the sanctuary dimension shuddered violently. The cosmic nebula surrounding them rippled as if disturbed by an immense force. What's happening? Gwen asked, creating mana platforms beneath everyone as the floor of the sanctuary seemed to temporarily phase out of existence. Ben checked the viewing portal, which showed Lord Zenith at the convergence point, his massive form now radiating power visible from orbit. The being appeared to be looking directly at them, despite the sanctuary's supposed isolation from normal space-time. He's found us, Ben realized with growing alarm. He can sense the divine catalyst in the Omnitrix. The sanctuary shuddered again, more violently this time. Cracks appeared in the fabric of reality around them, revealing glimpses of chaotic energy beyond. This dimension is collapsing, Eunice warned. We need to leave immediately. And go where? Kevin demanded. Earth is half transformed already. Ben made a quick decision. Charmcaster, can your magic get us to Legerdemain? Would that be safer than Earth right now? She sighed. Read this with surprising calm given the disintegrating reality around them. Possibly. Legerdemain exists partially outside conventional dimensions. It might be less affected by the convergence. Do it, Ben instructed. Create a portal. Everyone else, gather what equipment you can salvage from the transport. As Charmcaster began preparing a transportation spell, the others quickly collected essential supplies. Rook secured additional restraints on Chadwick, who watched the proceedings with disturbing serenity. Your resistance is admirable but futile, he commented. Lord Zenith exists, in all potential realities simultaneously. There is nowhere you can hide from him. We're not hiding, Ben countered firmly. We're regrouping. There's a difference. The sanctuary dimension gave another violent shudder. Sections of it now completely disappearing into swirling voids. The transport began to break apart as reality itself became unstable beneath it. Portal ready, Charmcaster announced, maintaining a shimmering magenta doorway with visible effort. But I can't hold it long in these conditions. Everyone through, now, Ben ordered, helping Gwen guide the others toward the portal. Rook and Kevin dragged the restrained Chadwick with them, followed by Eunice and Kale. Gwen went next, maintaining a mana shield behind her to protect against the collapsing dimension. Ben turned to Charmcaster, who was clearly struggling to maintain the portal while reality disintegrated around them. You too, I'll be right behind you. Always the hero, she remarked with a strained smile, backing toward the portal while maintaining her spell. Some things never change, Tennyson. As she stepped through, Ben took one final look at the viewing portal showing Earth's transformation. Lord Zenith had grown even larger, his form now encompassing much of what had been the Pacific Northwest. Smaller rifts continued to multiply globally, allowing glimpses of other dimensions to bleed through. This isn't over, Ben promised quietly, then leapt through the portal just as the sanctuary dimension collapsed entirely. He emerged into the strange, inverted reality of Legerdemain, where floating islands drifted through a magenta sky, and massive stone structures defied conventional architecture. The others were gathered on a large platform, catching their breath after their narrow escape. Charmcaster sealed the portal behind him with a final gesture before collapsing to her knees in exhaustion. Welcome to my homeland, Tennyson. Or what's left of it. Ben looked around. and immediately understood her grim tone. Legerdemain, always strange by Earth standards, was now in obvious distress. Parts of the realm flickered in and out of existence, while others had been taken by foreign landscapes, desert regions, crystalline formations, and areas of what appeared to be living technology. The convergence is affecting Legerdemain too, Gwen observed, helping Charmcaster to her feet. Yes, but differently, the silver-haired sorceress explained, gesturing to the chaotic landscape. As a dimension that exists at the nexus of magical energy, Legerdemain is becoming a crossroads for all affected realities. Different sections are merging with different dimensions. Which means we might find allies here, Ben realized. Beings from other dimensions who are also resisting the convergence. Or enemies, Rook cautioned. Not all dimensional travelers will share our objectives. A distant explosion drew their attention to a floating island several miles away, where what appeared to be a battle was taking place. Flashes of energy and magical discharges lit up the magenta sky. Someone's fighting, Kevin observed unnecessarily. My people, Charmcaster said with sudden urgency. The stone creatures who guard Legerdemain's central spire. They must be defending against incursions. Ben studied the distant battle, then looked at his team, exhausted, disoriented, but still determined. We need information and allies. If Charmcaster's people are fighting to protect this dimension, they might be our best bet for both. Agreed, Rook said, but how do we reach them? The transport is destroyed. Ben glanced at the Omnitrix, which had stabilized somewhat since entering Legerdemain. I think it's time to test just how much these divine upgrades have improved my aliens. As he activated the device, selecting a flight-capable form, he couldn't help but feel that despite the overwhelming odds, they had taken their first real step toward understanding the convergence, and perhaps toward stopping it. The battle for reality itself had only just begun, and standing at the center of it all was the strange blue-white energy now infusing the OMN. Itrix, a divine catalyst of consciousness that might prove to be either their greatest weapon or their ultimate undoing. Lord Zenith had declared the harvest of worlds, but Ben Tennyson had faced impossible odds before. And one thing remained certain: as long as the Omnitrix remained on his wrist, he would never stop fighting. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Power and Potential. Legerdemain's magenta sky pulsed with chaotic energy as dimensional fragments collided overhead. Islands that had once drifted serenely through the magical realm now crashed into one another, merging landscapes that were never meant to coexist. Crystal formations sprouted from stone architecture, desert dunes flowed over magical gardens, technological structures phased in and out of reality beside ancient ruins. Ben Tennyson stood at the edge of a floating fortress, a structure Charmcaster had called Arcanum Bastion, watching as another section of Legerdemain was consumed by a dimensional rift. 3 days had passed since their escape from Earth. Though time flowed differently here, making precise measurement impossible. Beautiful and terrifying, isn't it? Charmcaster's voice came from behind him. She approached to stand beside him at the parapet, her silver hair gleaming in the strange light. Even in its death throes, Legerdemain maintains a certain majesty. Ben glanced at her, noting the exhaustion etched in her features. She had been working tirelessly to stabilize their sanctuary, using ancient spells to shield the bastion from the worst effects of the convergence. "We're not going to let it die," he said with quiet determination. "Not Legerdemain, not Earth, not any of the dimensions." A small, tired smile touched her lips. "Your conviction remains impressive, Tennyson. Though I wonder if even you can stop a being that exists beyond conventional reality." Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, which had stabilized since their arrival in Legerdemain. The occasional pulses of blue-white energy had settled into a consistent, subtle glow around the device's edges. "The Omnitrix has never let me down before," he replied, though his tone carried a hint of uncertainty he wouldn't have allowed himself to show years ago. "And now with this divine catalyst thing, there has to be a way to use it against Zenith." Charmcaster studied him with newfound respect. The brash teenager she once battled had matured into something else entirely, still determined and occasionally overconfident, but tempered by experience and a deeper understanding of responsibility. "You've changed, Ben Tennyson." "So have you," he countered with a slight smile. "I don't remember the old Charmcaster helping us save multiple dimensions." "The old Charmcaster was consumed by vengeance and power," she admitted, her gaze returning to the fractured sky. "I've learned some painful lessons since then." Their conversation was interrupted by approaching footsteps. Rook and Eunice emerged from the interior of the bastion, carrying what appeared to be modified scanning equipment. "Ben, we have completed the dimensional resonance scan," Rook reported, his formal tone unchanged despite the chaos around them. "The results are concerning." Quote, Eunice activated a holographic display showing a complex three-dimensional map of intersecting planes. "We've identified 17 distinct dimensional fragments currently merging with Legerdemain. Each one represents a different universe being drawn into the convergence." Ben studied the display, noting the swirling vortex at its center. "And that's the epicenter, where Zenith is." "Yes," Eunice confirmed. "Earth, our Earth, remains the primary convergence point. But the effect is spreading exponentially through the dimensional barriers." "What about Universe 6? Ben asked, thinking of Kale and her efforts to contact her allies. Eunice adjusted the display, highlighting a particular dimensional signature. "Here, it's being drawn toward the epicenter at an accelerating rate, which means we have limited time before both our universes are completely absorbed," Rook concluded. Ben processed this information quickly, his mind already formulating strategies. "Have we made any progress understanding how the divine catalyst in the Omnitrix works?" "Some," Eunice replied, switching the display to show complex energy readings. "The divine energy has integrated with the Omnitrix's core systems, enhancing its transformative capabilities. But it's more than simple power augmentation, it's altering the fundamental nature of your alien forms." "I've noticed," Ben said dryly, remembering his recent transformations. But can it be weaponized against Zenith? Potentially, Eunice said cautiously. The energy signatures are similar to what we detected at the convergence epicenter. There's a resonance pattern that suggests they're connected somehow. Like opposing poles of a magnet, Charmcaster suggested, studying the energy readings with interest. Drawn together by their fundamental nature, but potentially capable of nullifying each other under the right circumstances. Exactly, Eunice agreed, but harnessing that potential would require a level of control over the divine energy that we haven't yet achieved. Ben was about to respond when the bastion shuddered violently, stones grinding against each other as the structure stabilized itself. Such tremors had become increasingly common as Legerdemain's reality continued to fragment. We should return to the others, Rook suggested pragmatically. Gwen has been working with Kale on a method to stabilize the local dimensional barriers. They made their way through the bastion's winding corridors, passing chambers where refugees from various merged realities had found temporary shelter. Stone creatures native to Legerdemain stood guard at key junctions, their glowing eyes tracking all movement with wary vigilance. The central chamber of the bastion served as their command center, a vast circular room with a domed ceiling depicting arcane constellations. A large stone table occupied its center, around which the remainder of their team had gathered. Gwen and Kale stood on opposite sides of an elaborate magical construct hovering above the table, a miniature representation of the local dimensional boundaries. Kevin leaned against a nearby column, absently, manipulating a piece of metal absorbed from one of the alien technologies they'd salvaged. In a secured alcove, Chadwick remained under guard, his restraints enhanced by both magical and technological measures. Any progress? Ben asked as they joined the group. Gwen brushed a strand of red hair from her face, the motion betraying her fatigue. Some. We've identified a pattern to the dimensional fluctuations. They're not random. They follow a specific frequency. Like a pulse, Kale added, her quiet voice carrying unusual authority when discussing energy dynamics. The convergence expands and contracts in regular intervals, drawing more reality into itself with each cycle. If we can generate a counter-frequency, Gwen continued, manipulating the magical construct to demonstrate, we might be able to temporarily stabilize a passage between dimensions. Stable enough to reach Universe 6? Ben asked, immediately grasping the implications. Kale nodded, a spark of hope in her dark eyes. If we succeed, we could establish contact with Khalif Lassan and the others. They have resources and knowledge that could help us understand what we're facing. And potentially find the other divine catalysts, Eunice added. If Chadwick's information is accurate, we need to locate all 5 to have any hope of reversing the convergence. Kevin pushed away from his column, joining them at the table. Speaking of our chatty prisoner, he's been awfully quiet since we got here. Almost like he's waiting for something. All eyes turned to the alcove where Chadwick sat motionless, his expression serene despite his captivity. The former Forever King had offered little additional information since their arrival, responding to questions with cryptic half-answers or unsettling silence. His biometric readings remained stable, Rook reported, checking a monitor. However, his neural patterns show unusual activity in the theta wave spectrum, consistent with some form of meditation or trance state. Our communication, Charmcaster suggested grimly, his consciousness may be partially existing outside conventional time, as he claimed. He could be communicating with the Chronos Collective, or even Zenith himself. Then we need to move quickly, Ben decided. Gwen, Kale, how soon can you stabilize a passage to Universe 6? We need one more component, Gwen replied. A dimensional NCHOR point. Something that exists simultaneously in both universes to serve as a bridge. The divine catalyst energy, Eunice suggested, gesturing to the Omnitrix. If it's truly a fundamental aspect of reality, it should exist in identical form across all dimensions. Ben considered this, looking down at the device on his wrist. So you're saying the Omnitrix could act as the anchor point? Precisely, Eunice confirmed. By channeling the divine energy in a specific pattern, you might be able to create a stable bridge between our universe and Kale's. It's worth trying, Kale agreed. Quote, the divine energy you possess is similar to what some beings in my universe can access. There should be a natural resonance. Ben nodded, his decision made. Let's do it. What do you need me to do? Gwen and Kale exchanged a glance before Gwen answered. We've prepared a ritual circle in the Eastern Tower. It combines my mana manipulation with Kale's key techniques, creating a framework for dimensional bridging. You would stand at its center, using the Omnitrix to complete the connection. Sounds simple enough, Ben remarked with characteristic optimism. Except for the part where you'll be channeling enough divine energy to potentially tear a hole through multiple dimensional barriers, Kevin added dryly. There is significant risk, Rook acknowledged. If the energy flow becomes unstable, the consequences could be severe. Quote, Ben shrugged with a casualness that didn't quite reach his eyes. When aren't there risks? Besides, we're running out of options and time. We should proceed immediately, Kale urged. A rare decisiveness in her tone. I can sense the dimensional barriers continuing to weaken. Soon, controlled passage between universes may become impossible. With their course decided, the group made preparations. Eunice modified the Omnitrix's interface to better channel the divine energy, while Charmcaster reinforced the magical wards around the Eastern Tower to contain any potential energy discharge. Rook and Kevin established a security perimeter, wary of interference from either dimensional refugees or Chronos entities. An hour later, Ben stood at the center of an elaborate ritual circle in the Eastern Tower's highest chamber. Intricate patterns covered the stone floor, part magical sigils from Gwen's spellwork, part energy conduits based on Kale's knowledge of key manipulation. The open-air design allowed a clear view of Legerdemain's fractured sky, where dimensional rifts continued to expand and contract in the unsettling pattern they had identified. Remember, Gwen instructed as she took her position at one point of the triangular formation around Ben, focus on maintaining a steady energy flow. Don't push too hard or try to force the connection. Let the divine energy guide itself, Kale added from her position at the second point. It knows its own nature better than we do. Charmcaster completed the triangle, her hands already glowing with magenta energy. I'll maintain the boundary field. If anything goes wrong, I can terminate the ritual immediately. Ben nodded, taking a deep breath as he centered himself. Everyone ready? Here goes nothing. He activated the Omnitrix, but instead of selecting a transformation, he accessed a special function Eunice had configured, a direct energy channeling mode that would draw upon Divine Catalyst without triggering a full alien transformation. The device responded immediately, blue-white energy flowing outward in controlled streams that followed the patterns inscribed on the floor. The ritual circle began to glow, first with Gwen's magenta mana, then with Kale's green key, and finally with Charmcaster's unique magical signature. Where the energies met, they didn't clash but harmonized, creating a swirling vortex that spiraled upward toward the fractured sky. Ben felt the divine energy flowing through him, not painfully, but with an intensity that made every nerve ending tingle with awareness. He could sense connections forming, dimensional barriers thinning in a controlled manner unlike the chaotic convergence Zenith had initiated. It's working, Gwen called over the growing hum of energy. The dimensional frequency is stabilizing. Above them, the swirling vortex expanded, creating what appeared to be a tunnel through reality itself. Through it, they could glimpse another world, a landscape of red earth and strange vegetation beneath a purple-tinged sky. Universe 6, Kale confirmed, her expression lighting with recognition. That's the training grounds outside Sadala City. The connection strengthened, the tunnel becoming more defined as reality between the dimensions aligned. Ben maintained his focus, surprised by how natural the process felt. Divine energy responded to his will with an intuitive ease, as if it had always been a part of him. Energy levels holding steady, Charmcaster reported, monitoring the boundary field. The passage is stabilizing. Just as success seemed assured, Ben felt a sudden shift in the energy flow, a discordant note in the otherwise harmonious pattern. The divine energy from the Omnitrix surged unexpectedly, responding to something on the other side of the dimensional passage. Something's coming through, he warned, struggling to maintain control as the energy flow intensified. The dimensional tunnel pulsed with increasing brightness, its edges fluctuating as something approached from the Universe 6 side. A figure appeared within the tunnel, moving at incredible speed toward their reality. Is it Khalifla? Kale asked hopefully, straining to see through the energy distortions. Before anyone could answer, the figure burst through the passage in an explosion of power that sent shockwaves across the ritual circle. The dimensional tunnel collapsed behind them, sealing with a thunderous crack that shook the entire tower. As the energy dissipated, they could finally see who had crossed over. A young woman with spiky black hair and fierce eyes, her body surrounded by golden aura that gradually faded as she landed in the center of the ritual circle beside Ben. She wore a magenta top that left her midriff exposed and baggy purple pants, with gold wristbands that gleamed in Legerdemain's strange light. "Khalifla-san," Kale exclaimed, abandoning her position to rush forward. The newcomer grinned confidently, dusting herself off. "Talk about a rough ride. Your dimensional barriers are a mess, Kale." "You made it," Kale said with evident relief, stopping just short of embracing her friend, her natural shyness reasserting itself despite her joy. Khalifla looked around with keen interest, taking in the ritual circle, the strange architecture of the tower, and the fractured sky beyond. Her gaze lingered on Ben, noting the Omnitrix still pulsing with divine energy. "So you're the one with the divine catalyst," she said without preamble. "Interesting. Not what I expected." Ben deactivated the energy channeling mode, feeling a curious mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. "Ben Tennyson, welcome to what's left of Legerdemain." "Khalifla," she replied simply. Her stir radiated confidence bordering on arrogance, but her eyes revealed sharp intelligence assessing everything around her. "Looks like your universe is in as bad shape as ours. The convergence is affecting all dimensions," Gwen explained, approaching cautiously. "We've been trying to understand its mechanics and find a way to stop it." Khalifla's attention shifted to the others, quickly cataloging potential allies. "At least you've got a decent team. In my universe, most fighters are busy dealing with the immediate chaos. Only a few of us are focusing on the bigger picture." "Which is?" Charmcaster prompted. "Zenith," Khalifla stated flatly, "the being orchestrating this whole mess. According to Vados, she's an angel, kind of a divine attendant in our universe. He's an entity from before the gods, who was imprisoned between dimensions eons ago. And now he's free," Ben concluded. "Not entirely," Khalifla corrected. "That's why he needs the convergence. His consciousness is free, but his true power remains partially sealed. The 5 divine catalysts are the keys to his full liberation." This new information sparked immediate discussion as the group moved from the ritual circle back toward the central chamber. Khalifla continued her explanation as they walked, her blunt, direct manner contrasting with Kale's quieter demeanor. "The catalysts represent fundamental aspects of reality," she explained, confirming what they had learned from Chadwick. "Consciousness, time, space, energy, and matter. Each exists in a different primary dimension. By bringing them together, Zenith can reconstruct reality according to his design." "But why?" Ben asked. "What's his ultimate goal?" Khalifla's expression darkened. "According to Vados, Zenith believes reality is flawed, that the separation of dimensions creates unnecessary conflict and chaos. He wants to create a singular, unified dimension under his control. At the cost of free will and diversity," Gwen observed. "Exactly," Khalifla confirmed. "Everything unique about each universe would be homogenized into his vision of perfect order." They reached the central chamber, where Rook, Eunice, and Kevin awaited news of the ritual's outcome. Brief introductions were made before Khalifla noticed Chadwick in his secured alcove. "Who's the prisoner?" she asked sharply. "Dr. Joseph Chadwick," Rook explained. Mer forever king and current acolyte of Lord Zenith. He has provided some information regarding the convergence, though much of it requires verification." Khalifla approached the alcove, studying Chadwick with unconcealed suspicion. "In our universe, Zenith's followers have a distinctive energy signature, a temporal distortion surrounding their life force." She closed her eyes briefly, seeming to sense energies beyond normal perception. When they opened again, her expression had hardened. "He's connected to the Chronos Collective," she confirmed. "His consciousness exists partially outside normal time. You should either eliminate him or secure him more thoroughly." "We don't eliminate prisoners," Ben stated firmly, though his tone remained respectful of her different perspective. Khalifla shrugged. "Your universe, your rules. But don't say I didn't warn you when he causes problems." "Speaking of problems," Kevin interjected, "what's the situation in Universe 6? How bad has the convergence gotten there?" Khalifla's confident demeanor faltered slightly. "Bad. Major cities have been merged with fragments from other dimensions. Beings from across the multiverse are appearing everywhere. The god of destruction, Champa, has been trying to maintain order, but even he's struggling against the fundamental nature of the convergence. What about the divine catalyst in your universe? Eunice asked. Have you identified it? Quote, we believe it's located in the sacred world of the Kais, Khalifla replied. It's manifesting as a crystal formation that's reshaping reality around it. VOD. OS has been working to contain its effects, but her powers have limitations against something this fundamental. Then we need to secure both catalysts, Ben decided. The one here in the Omnitrix, and the one in your universe. Agreed, Khalifla said with a nod of approval. But there's a complication. The convergence has attracted power-hungry opportunists from across dimensions. In our universe, beings like Frost, our version of the tyrant Frieza, are trying to harness the dimensional energy for themselves. We have similar problems, Rook acknowledged. Many of Earth's villains see the convergence as an opportunity rather than a crisis. Ben's expression became thoughtful. If the divine catalyst in the Omnitrix is essential to Zenith's plan, we need to understand exactly how it works and how to control it. He turned to Eunice. You've been studying it. What have you learned? Eunice activated a holographic display showing complex energy patterns. The divine energy has integrated with the Omnitrix's core functionality, enhancing your transformations in ways that transcend normal genetic manipulation. Each alien form now accesses a portion of divine power, altering its fundamental nature. Like when I transformed into Alien X, Ben recalled. The divine energy changed how the transformation worked. No more arguing with Serena and Bellicus for control. Precisely, Eunice confirmed. The divine catalyst represents consciousness, the awareness that permeates all living things. It's harmonizing with your consciousness and the Omnitrix's programming to create something entirely new. Can Ben harness this power directly? Gwen asked. Without transforming? Theoretically, yes, Eunice replied cautiously. But it would require learning to channel divine energy. In its pure form, something few beings in any universe can accomplish. Khalifla, who had been listening intently, stepped forward. In our universe, we call that ultra instinct, a state where consciousness transcends normal limitations, allowing perfect harmony between mind, body, and energy. You know how to achieve this state? Ben asked, immediately interested. I know of it, Khalifla clarified. Only a handful of beings have ever mastered it. But, she studied Ben with renewed interest. If your device has merged with the divine catalyst of consciousness, you might have a unique pathway to accessing it. We should test this theory, Kale suggested quietly. Under controlled conditions. Agreed, Ben said. But first, we need a plan. If we're going to secure both catalysts and find a way to stop Zenith, we need to coordinate our efforts. The discussion that followed was intense and productive. With Khalifla's knowledge of Universe 6 and their combined understanding of the situation in their own dimension, a strategy began to take shape. They would split into two teams. One would remain in Legerdemain to develop Ben's control over the divine catalyst, while the other would attempt to establish a more stable passage to Universe 6 to assess the situation there directly. As the planning session concluded, Ben found himself drawn to the Bastion's western balcony, seeking a moment of quiet reflection. The responsibility weighing on him felt heavier than ever. Not just the fate of Earth, but of multiple universes now rested on their success. He was surprised when Khalifla joined him, leaning against the stone railing with casual confidence. Your team isn't bad, she remarked without preamble. Good mix of skills and powers. Thanks, Ben replied, though we're a bit out of our depth with this whole multiversal convergence thing. Khalifla studied him with unexpected intensity. You're not what I expected from Kale's description. She made you sound more conventional. Conventional, Ben repeated with a raised eyebrow. A typical hero type, all righteousness and speeches. A slight smirk curved her lips. You've got more edge than that. 9 years of saving the universe will do that to you, Ben replied with a wry smile of his own. What about you? How did you get involved in all this? Khalifla's expression shifted, revealing a glimpse of something deeper beneath her confident exterior. I've always chased power, wanted to be the strongest Saiyan. When the dimensional disturbances started, I saw an opportunity to test myself against new challenges. And then you realized how serious it was, Ben guessed. She nodded. When Vados explained what Zenith's convergence would mean, the end of diversity, of challenge, of growth, I knew it had to be stopped. Power means nothing if there's no choice in how to use it. Ben found himself appreciating her straightforward philosophy. Despite their different backgrounds, they shared a fundamental understanding about freedom and responsibility. So, Khalifah continued, gesturing to the Omnitrix, that device lets you transform into different aliens. Over 10,000 of them, Ben confirmed. Though the divine energy has changed how some of them work. Show me, she challenged with sudden interest. I want to see what we're working with. Ben considered for a moment, then activated the Omnitrix. The holographic display appeared, showing alien silhouettes now outlined with divine blue-white energy. He selected one of his most versatile forms, Heat Blast. The transformation was head over him in waves of green and blue-white light. When it cleared, the Pyronite stood before Khalifah, but dramatically altered from his usual appearance. The magma-like body now contained veins of divine energy that flowed like luminous rivers through his fiery form. The flames themselves burned with unusual intensity, occasionally shifting to blue-white at their hottest points. Most strikingly, a pattern resembling a dragon's outline occasionally flickered in the fire surrounding his head. Impressive, Khalifah acknowledged, genuinely intrigued. The divine energy has fully integrated with this form's elemental nature. She circled him, studying the transformation from all angles. The power level is significantly higher than a normal fire-based entity. It feels different too, Heat Blast explained, his voice carrying harmonics that gave it an almost musical quality. Not just stronger, but more connected. Like I can sense the fundamental nature of heat and energy itself. That's the divine catalyst at work, Khalifah confirmed. It's allowing your consciousness to interface directly with the elemental forces that compose this form. Heat Blast created a small flame above his palm, watching as it formed complex, beautiful patterns without conscious direction. The control is incredible. Before, Heat Blast's powers were powerful but relatively straightforward. Now I tease like I'm working with the concept of fire rather than just flames themselves. Khalifah's eyes narrowed in concentration. Try something. Focus on the essence of what heat truly is, molecular motion at its most fundamental level. See if you can manipulate that directly. Heat Blast closed his eyes, concentrating as suggested. The flame in his hand changed, becoming a perfect sphere of energy. Had neither grew nor diminished but maintained perfect equilibrium. Molecular stasis, Khalifah identified with approval. You're holding the energy in perfect balance, something that should be impossible for a normal fire-based entity. The demonstration was interrupted by Kale's arrival. She approached cautiously, her natural shyness evident despite her growing comfort with the group. Gwen H. has completed the initial warding sequences, she reported. We're ready to begin testing the divine energy's properties whenever you are. Heat Blast reverted to Ben with a flash of light. Perfect timing. Khalifah was just helping me understand some of the changes to my transformations. He's got potential, Khalifah told Kale with surprising approval. The divine catalyst has bonded well with his device. Kale nodded, a small smile touching her lips. I've sensed it. His energy signature is becoming more refined, less chaotic than when we first met. They returned to the main chamber. Preparations for the power testing had been completed. Gwen had established a containment field reinforced by Charmcaster's magic, creating a safe environment to explore the limits of the divine energy without risking damage to the already fragile dimensional barriers around them. The containment field will absorb and redirect any energy discharge, Gwen explained as Ben took his position at the center. We can measure output levels and stability without interference. I'll monitor the Omnitrix's systems during the tests, Eunice added from a control console nearby. If anything approaches dangerous levels, I can trigger a remote shutdown. Ben nodded, mentally preparing himself. What exactly am I trying to do here? Access the divine energy directly, Khalifah instructed, taking an unexpected teaching role. Without transformation. In our universe, divine energy manipulation begins with proper key control. I've never worked with key before, Ben admitted. The principle is similar to mana manipulation. Gwen suggested. Focus on the energy within and around you, then direct it with clear intent. Start by centering yourself, Kale advised softly. Find the quiet spot, CE between thoughts where energy naturally flows. Ben closed his eyes, following their guidance. He'd never been particularly skilled at meditation. His active mind tended to wander, but the stakes motivated him to concentrate fully. Gradually, he became aware of something new, a subtle current of energy flowing through him, connected to but distinct from the Omnitrix. That's it, Khalifah encouraged, her keen senses detecting his progress. You're tapping into your own life force energy. Now, try to connect that awareness to the divine catalyst in the device. Ben focused on the familiar presence of the Omnitrix on his wrist. But instead of accessing its transformation function, he concentrated on the blue-white energy he'd felt during the dimensional bridging ritual. To his surprise, it responded immediately. A warm tingling sensation spreading from the device up his arm. Energy levels rising, Eunice reported. The divine catalyst is responding to his directed focus. Good, Khalifah continued. Now, try to draw that energy outward, not as a transformation, but as an extension of your will. Ben focused on his right hand, imagining the divine energy flowing down his arm and gathering in his palm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, gradually, a small sphere of blue-white light formed above his open hand, unstable and flickering, but definitely present. He's doing it, Kale whispered. Genuine amazement in her voice. Channeling divine energy without transformation. The sphere grew slightly, stabilizing as Ben's confidence increased. It emitted no heat but a presence that everyone in the room could feel, a weight of potential that belied its small size. Remarkable adaptive capability, Eunice noted, studying the readings. The divine catalyst is responding to his intent, reconfiguring its expression pattern to match his visualization. Can you feel the difference? Khalifah asked Ben. Between this energy and your normal transformations. Ben nodded, eyes still fixed on the glowing sphere. It's purer somehow, less defined, but more flexible. Like it's waiting for me to tell it what to be. That's the nature of divine energy, Khalifah explained. It exists at the foundation of reality itself, before form and function are fully determined. Ben attempted to shape the energy further, willing it to extend into a beam. The sphere elongated slightly but then destabilized, dissipating in a flash that momentarily illuminated the entire chamber. Energy spike detected, Eunice reported. But well within safety parameters. Ben lowered his hand, feeling a curious mixture of exhilaration and fatigue. That was harder than it looked. But you did it, Kale encouraged. Most beings cannot channel divine energy at all, let alone on their first attempt. The Omnitrix is doing most of the work, Ben admitted modestly. It's translating my intent into the proper energy configuration. Don't sell yourself short, Khalifah countered. The device may contain the catalyst, but your consciousness is directing it. That connection is what makes this possible. They continued the experiments for several hours, with Ben making incremental progress in his control over the divine energy. By the end of the session, he could maintain a stable energy manifestation for nearly 30 seconds and even direct its movement with basic control. As they concluded the training, Rook approached with news from their monitoring systems. We have detected a significant dimensional disturbance near the borders of Legerdemain. Something is attempting to breach the magical barriers from the Earth's side. Zenith, Gwen asked with immediate concern. Negative, Rook replied. The energy signature is different, technological in nature, but enhanced with chronoton particles. Quote, the Forever Knights, Ben suggested. Possibly, Rook acknowledged, or another Earth faction that has acquired Chronos technology. We should investigate, Ben decided. If someone's found a way to target Legerdemain specifically, they might be tracking the divine catalyst. I'll come with you, Khalifah volunteered immediately. I want to see what kind of opposition this universe has to offer. Me too, Kale added quietly but firmly. Ben nodded, appreciating their support. Gwen, you and Charmcaster should maintain the Bastion's defenses. Eunice, keep analyzing the data from our training session. See if you can identify any patterns that might help us control the divine energy more effectively. And what about our chatty friend? Kevin asked, gesturing toward Chadwick. Keep him under maximum security, Ben instructed. If he's connected to the Chronos Collective as Khalifah believes, he might be more dangerous than we've realized. With their roles assigned, Ben, Khalifah, Kale, Rook, and Kevin prepared to investigate the dimensional disturbance. They gathered necessary equipment and headed toward the bastion's eastern gate, which would provide the most direct route to the affected area. As they traversed Legerdemain's fractured landscape, Ben was impressed by how naturally Caulifla and Kale adapted to the strange environment. The Saiyans moved with confident grace, their combat awareness evident in how they positioned themselves to cover potential angles of attack. "Your universe must have some interesting training grounds," Ben commented as they navigated a section where gravity shifted unpredictably. "Sadala has regions that would make this place look ordinary," Caulifla replied with a hint of pride. Ions thrive on adapting to challenging environments. It helps us grow stronger," Kale explained more fully. "Our biology responds to survival pressure by becoming more powerful after each challenge we overcome." "Convenient evolutionary trait," Kevin remarked. "Remind me never to get into a rematch with you guys." They reached a boundary region where Legerdemain's magenta sky gave way to a strange hybrid reality, part magical realm, part technological landscape. Floating islands intersected with what appeared to be sections of advanced machinery, creating impossible architectural formations that defied conventional physics. "The dimensional disturbance is centered 2 kilometers ahead," Rook reported, consulting his proto-tool scanning function. "Energy readings indicate active technological manipulation of the barrier between realities." "I can sense it," Kale confirmed, her expression concentrating. "Something is systematically testing the dimensional membrane, looking for weaknesses. Whoever it is, they're being careful," Caulifla observed. "Precision work rather than brute force." They proceeded cautiously, using the chaotic landscape for cover as they approached the disturbance. The boundary between dimensions became increasingly unstable as they advanced, with sections of reality flickering between different states like a malfunctioning hologram. Finally, they reached a vantage point overlooking the source of the disturbance, a clearing where a sophisticated device had been established. The apparatus resembled a portal frame surrounded by monitoring equipment, with energy conduits connecting to power sources of clearly alien design. More concerning were the figures operating the equipment, armored individuals whose design Ben recognized immediately. Vilgax's drones, he identified, his expression hardening. "Upgraded ones, by the look of them." "Vilgax?" Caulifla questioned. "Chimerian warlord," Ben explained briefly. "One of my oldest enemies. Obsessed with obtaining the Omnitrix. These drones appear significantly advanced compared to previous encounters," Rook observed. "Their armor incorporates chronodon technology similar to what the Forever Knights utilized." Indeed, the drones moved with unsettling efficiency, their normally mechanical movements enhanced by what appeared to be localized time manipulation, accelerating or slow. Wing is needed to optimize their functions. "If Vilgax has accessed Chrono's technology," Kevin began, "then he's potentially allied with either the Collective or Zenith," Ben finished grimly. "Just what we needed." "What's their objective?" Kale asked, studying the portal device. "Based on the configuration, they appear to be attempting to establish a stable passage directly into Legerdemain," Rook analyzed. "Bypassing the normal magical barriers that would prevent technological incursion. Targeting the divine catalyst," Caulifla concluded. "Your Vilgax must have realized its importance. We need to shut them down before they succeed," Ben decided. "Rook, can you identify the primary power source for their equipment?" Rook scanned the apparatus more thoroughly. "Affirmative. The central node there," he indicated a glowing component near the base of the portal frame, "appears to be the primary energy distributor." "Then that's our target," Ben confirmed. "Caulifla, Kale, you two hit them from the left flank. Kevin and Rook, take the right. I'll create a diversion to draw their attention forward." Simple and direct, Caulifla approved with a grin. "I like it." Ben activated the Omnitrix, considering his options carefully. "Need something with enough power to get their attention, but precise enough not to destabilize the dimensional barriers further." He selected Chromastone, the crystalline energy manipulator. The transformation proceeded with the now familiar integration of divine energy. The resulting form maintained Chromastone's crystalline structure, but with significant enhancements. The purple crystals now contained intricate patterns of blue-white energy that flowed like liquid light through his body. Each facet reflected not just light but glimpses of other dimensions, creating a kaleidoscopic effect around him. "Chromastone," he announced, feeling the enhanced connection to energy fields around him. "This should do nicely." The team split according to plan. with Khalifah and Kale moving swiftly to the left while Rook and Kevin circled right. Chromastone waited until they were in position before making his move. He stepped into the clearing, absorbing ambient energy from the dimensional fluctuations around him. The power flowed into his crystalline body, multiplied by the divine catalyst's enhancement, until he radiated with barely contained force. "Knock knock," he called, drawing the drones' attention. Their reaction was immediate and coordinated. A dozen weapons locked onto him, charging with ominous energy. The lead dro, nay, larger than the others with additional command modules, stepped forward. Target identified. Benjamin Tennyson. Divine catalyst detected. Initiating capture protocol. "So Vilgax does know about the catalyst," Chromastone noted. "Tell your boss I'm not interested in a reunion." The drone's response was predictable, a barrage of energy weapons fired simultaneously at his position. Chromastone made no attempt to dodge, instead absorbing the incoming energy directly into his crystalline body. The divine enhancement allowed him to process the power instantly, converting it into his own unique energy signature. "Thanks for the boost," he remarked, then unleashed a massive beam of rainbow-colored energy interlaced with divine blue-white patterns. The blast struck the ground before the drones, creating a blinding explosion that scattered their formation. The diversion worked perfectly. As the drones focused on Chromastone, Khalifah and Kale struck from the left flank. Khalifah moved with impressive speed, her hands glowing with concentrated energy as she targeted individual drones with precise key blasts. Kale followed slightly behind, her fighting style more methodical but equally effective, using controlled bursts of energy to disable rather than destroy. From the right, Rook deployed his proto-tool in multi-cannon configuration, laying down suppressive fire that forced the drones into predictable evasive patterns. Kevin, having absorbed the metallic properties of a nearby structure, engaged in close combat, his transformed arms morphing into blades that cut through drone armor with surprising efficiency. The coordinated attack caught the drones off guard despite their enhanced capabilities. Several fell immediately to the combined assault, while others attempted to protect the portal apparatus. Chromastone advanced steadily, continuing to absorb and redirect energy attacks. The divine enhancement to his powers allowed for unprecedented control. He could now selectively determine which energies to absorb and which to deflect, making him far more versatile than before. "The power core," Rook called out, indicating that the path to their primary target had been cleared. Chromastone redirected his focus, channeling the accumulated energy into a concentrated beam aimed directly at the portal's power distribution node. The beam struck with perfect precision, overloading the system in a cascade of energy that caused the entire apparatus to destabilize. The portal frame began to collapse, energy arcs crackling dangerously across its surface. But rather than simply shutting down, the destabilized technology created an unexpected effect, a rapidly expanding dimensional rift that began to draw in the surrounding area. "It's collapsing into a singularity," Rook warned. "The chronoton elements are creating a localized temporal implosion." "Everyone back," Chromastone ordered, moving to contain the growing distortion. He planted himself directly before the collapsing portal, extending both hands to channel energy into a containment field. The divine energy responded to his intent, creating a barrier between the imploding technology and the rest of Legerdemain. But the force was immense, threatening to overwhelm even his enhanced capabilities. "Need a hand." Khalifah appeared beside him, her body suddenly glowing with golden energy as her hair transformed to a brilliant yellow. Standing upright with increased volume, her muscle mass expanded slightly, and a golden aura surrounded her entire form. "Super Saiyan," Kale explained briefly as she joined them, undergoing a similar but green-tinged transformation. "Our advanced combat state." Together, the three of them created a combined barrier, Chromastone's energy manipulation, Khalifah's golden Super Saiyan aura, and Kale's green-hued power all merging into a composite shield that contained the temporal implosion. The remaining drones attempted to retreat, but the singularity's pull proved too strong. One by one, they were drawn into the collapsing portal, disappearing into the dimensional distortion. Finally, with a blinding flash and a thunderous implosion, the entire apparatus collapsed in on itself, leaving nothing but a scorch mark on the ground. Chromastone reverted to Ben with a flash of green and blue light, the effort of containing the implosion having drained his energy reserves. Both Saiyans powered down from their transformed states as well, though they appeared less fatigued by the experience. That, Kevin remarked as he rejoined them, was way too close. Indeed, Rook agreed, scanning the area for residual energy signatures. The Chronodon technology was far more volatile than anticipated. But effective, Khalifla noted, examining the scorch mark thoughtfully. That portal was nearly stable enough to bypass Legerdemain's magical barriers completely. Which means Vilgax has made significant technological advances, Ben concluded grimly. If he's working with Chrono's technology, he's more dangerous than ever. Kale knelt to examine the few drone components that hadn't been drawn into the implosion. These contain elements I recognize from Universe 6 technology. The convergence is allowing transfer of technological knowledge between dimensions. Perfect, Kevin muttered sarcastically. Now all our enemies can share notes. They collected what salvageable components remained and began the journey back to the bastion. As they traveled, Ben found himself walking alongside Khalifla, who seemed to be studying him with renewed interest. You handled that well, she commented unexpectedly. Good tactical decisions, effective power usage. Thanks, Ben replied, somewhat surprised by the compliment. You and Kale make a pretty impressive team yourselves. We've trained together for years, Khalifla explained. But that wasn't even close to our full power. A competitive grin crossed her face. When this crisis is over, we should have a proper sparring match. See what your transformations can really do against a Saiyan. You're on, Ben agreed, finding her straightforward challenge refreshing. When they returned to the bastion, they found Gwen and Charmcaster in the midst of an intense discussion with Eunice. The trio looked up as they entered, expressions revealing that something significant had occurred during their absence. What happened? Ben asked immediately. We've made a breakthrough regarding the divine catalyst, Eunice explained, activating a holographic display. While analyzing the data from your training session, I detected a recurring pattern in the energy fluctuations, a signature that appears consistently across all manifestations of the divine energy. The display showed a complex waveform that pulsed with a distinctive rhythm. We believe this is the fundamental heartbeat of the divine catalyst, Gwen continued. Its unique resonance frequency that distinguishes it from other forms of energy. More importantly, Charmcaster added, we found references to this exact pattern in ancient magical texts. She produced a weathered tome open to a page showing intricate illustrations of a dragon-like entity surrounded by energy patterns identical to those in Eunice's display. The dragon god, she said, pointing to the central figure. A primordial entity said to exist at the foundation of consciousness itself, the awareness that precedes all other awareness. Ben studied the illustration with growing interest. And you think this is connected to the divine catalyst in the Omnitrix? Not just connected, Eunice clarified. We believe they're one and the same. The divine catalyst of consciousness is a fragment of the dragon god's power, his essence dispersed across the multiverse. Which explains the dragon-like patterns that sometimes appear in your transformed states, Gwen added. The energy is expressing its original nature. According to the text, Charmcaster continued. The dragon god existed before the separation of dimensions, a being of pure consciousness that perceived all potential realities simultaneously. When the multiverse fractured into distinct dimensions, aspects of his power were scattered, becoming the foundational consciousness that underlies all living things. And Zenith is trying to recombine these aspects, Ben reasoned, using the convergence to reunite the fragments and harness their power. Precisely, Eunice confirmed. By bringing all 5 divine catalysts together, he could potentially access power equivalent to the original dragon god, enough to reshape reality according to his design. Khalifla had been listening intently, her expression growing increasingly troubled. This matches what Vados told us. In our universe, there are legends of the dragon god, a being even the gods of destruction acknowledge as their predecessor. The text mentions a state called Ultra Instinct, Charmcaster added, turning to another page. Described as perfect harmony between consciousness and action, a state where thought and movement become one, transcending normal limitations. That's a real thing in our universe, Khalifla confirmed with evident surprise. The highest form of combat mastery, achieved by only a handful of beings. It's considered the domain of the angels and gods. And you think Ben could CCESS this state through the divine catalyst? Gwen asked, looking between Eunice and Charmcaster. Theoretically, yes, Eunice replied. The catalyst represents consciousness itself. If Ben could harmonize with its energy, integrate it completely rather than just channeling it through transformations, he might achieve something comparable to this ultra instinct state. But there's a risk, Charmcaster warned. The text describes mortals who attempted to harness the dragon god's power directly. Most were consumed by it, their individual consciousness overwhelmed by the universal awareness it contains. Ben absorbed this information thoughtfully. So I either master this power and gain an ability that might help us stop Zenith, or get my mind wiped out by cosmic consciousness overload. He shrugged with characteristic determination. Sounds like Tuesday. This isn't something to joke about, Ben, Gwen cautioned, concern evident in her voice. We're talking about fundamental forces of reality here. I know, he acknowledged more seriously, but we're running out of options. If Zenith gets all 5 catalysts, we lose everything. If there's a chance this ultra instinct thing could give us an edge, I have to try. Khalifla studied him with newfound respect. Accessing ultra instinct isn't just about power, it requires completely letting go of conscious thought, allowing our body and energy to act independently of your mind. It's counterintuitive for most fighters, but potentially achievable with the divine catalyst as a foundation, Eunice suggested. The Omnitree X already manages complex transformations automatically. This would be an extension of that function, but applied to energy manipulation rather than physical form. I could help with the training, Kale offered quietly. I've experienced states where instinct takes over completely. We all could, Khalifla agreed. Different perspectives might help identify the path that works best for you. Before they could discuss further, an alarm sounded throughout the bastion. Rook immediately accessed a communication panel on the wall. Perimeter breach, he reported tersely. Multiple intruders have entered Legerdemain through a newly formed dimensional rift. Vilgax, Ben questioned. Negative, Rook replied, studying the incoming data. Energy signatures indicate Chrono's collective entities, but different from previous encounters. More organized, more powerful. They're evolving, Khalifla realized with concern. Adapting to the changing dimensional landscape. And there's something else, Rook added, his expression growing even more serious. A biological signature matching Vilgax has been detected among them, but significantly altered. His DNA appears to have Ted chronoton particles at the cellular level. Vilgax with time powers, Kevin summarized grimly. Because he wasn't dangerous enough already. Ben's expression hardened with resolve. We need to intercept them before they reach the bastion. If they're after the divine catalyst, we can't risk them getting close to our base of operations. Agreed, Rook said. The incursion point is approximately 5 kilometers southwest of our position, a region where Legerdemain's barriers have been significantly weakened by the convergence. I'll take point, Ben decided. Khalifla, Kale, you two flank from above. Use your flight abilities for aerial support. Rook, Kevin, secure our rear approach. Gwen, Charmcaster, stay here and reinforce the bastion's defenses in case this is a diversion. And Eunice, Gwen asked. Continue analyzing the dragon god information, Ben instructed. If Ultra Instinct is our best shot against Zenith, we need to understand exactly how to achieve it. With their roles assigned, the team prepared for battle. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through options before selecting Jetray. The aerodynamic amphibian would provide speed and maneuverability for the approaching confrontation. The transformation resulted in a dramatically enhanced version of the alien. Jetray's typically red skin now featured intricate patterns of blue-white energy that flowed E-circuit pathways across his aerodynamic form. His wings had expanded, becoming semi-translucent with divine energy pulsing through their structure. Most notably, his neuroshock blasts were now visibly infused with the same energy, promising significantly increased power. Whoa, Jetray commented, examining his transformed state. Definitely got an upgrade. The divine energy is becoming more integrated with each transformation. Eunice observed, your alien forms are evolving to better channel its properties. Let's put it to good use, Khalifla suggested, already rising into the air with her key-based flight abilities. Kale joined her, a greenish aura surrounding her form as she levitated effortlessly. The aerial trio departed first, with Rook and Kevin following on the ground using GA salvaged Forever Night vehicle they had modified for Legerdemain's unusual terrain. As they traveled southwest, the landscape became increasingly distorted, regions where multiple dimensions had partially merged, creating impossible geographical features and physics-defying environments. The convergence is accelerating, Kale observed as they flew over a section where a crystalline forest had merged with what appeared to be a technological cityscape. These merged zones are becoming more stable, less likely to separate naturally. All part of Zenith's plan, Khalifla added grimly. The longer the convergence continues, the more permanent the changes become. Jetray's enhanced senses detected the disturbance before they visually confirmed it. A massive rift had opened in what had once been a serene valley, now transformed into a chaotic nexus where multiple realities collided. From within this dimensional wound emerged the Chronos collective entities, chrome-like beings whose foe RMS shifted between solid and liquid states as they manipulated local time fields around themselves. And at their center walked a figure Ben recognized immediately, though significantly changed from their last encounter. Vilgax had always been imposing, nearly 9 feet tall with a muscular build that emphasized his alien physiology. But the being that emerged from the rift was something more. His green skin now contained patterns of shifting chrome, similar to the Chronos entities but integrated into his biological form. Chronodan energy visibly pulsed through his enhanced musculature, and his eyes glowed with temporal power that left afterimages as he moved. Most concerning was the device attached to his chest, a technological module that resembled a simplified version of the Omnitrix, but constructed with Chronos components that pulsed with unsettling energy. "Is that your Vilgax?" Khalifla asked, clearly impressed despite herself. "He's absorbed significant Chronodan energy." "That's him," Jetray confirmed, his voice carrying a note of grim recognition, but enhanced by Chronos technology in a way I've never seen before. They descended to a vantage point on a floating rock formation, observing as Vilgax directed the Chronos entities in a methodical search pattern. The chrome beings moved outward in concentric circles, scanning the environment with technology that API Red designed to detect specific energy signatures. "They're looking for the divine catalyst," Kale whispered, "tracking its energy pattern, which means they'll find us soon enough," Jetray concluded. "Time to introduce ourselves." He opened a communication channel to Rook and Kevin, who had reached a position on the ground below. "We've confirmed Vilgax and approximately 20 Chronos entities. They're conducting a search pattern, tracking the divine energy signature." "Understood," Rook replied. "We are in position to provide ground support." "On my signal," Jetray instructed. "Hit them from multiple angles. Keep them disoriented. Priority is determining Vilgax's new capabilities before engaging directly." With nods of confirmation from his allies, Jetray launched himself from the floating rock, streaking toward the Chronos formation with incredible speed. Khalifla and Kale followed, separating to approach from different vectors as planned. Jetray struck first, firing in Ed Neuroshock blasts at 3 Chronos entities simultaneously. The divine-infused energy tore through their chrome forms with unexpected effectiveness, disrupting their temporal fields and causing them to momentarily destabilize. The attack immediately drew attention from the remaining entities and from Vilgax himself, whose eyes narrowed as he recognized his old enemy despite the transformed state. "Tennyson." Vilgax's voice carried the same menacing quality but now contained harmonics that echoed across multiple temporal frequencies simultaneously. "Predictable as always." "Nice makeover, Vilgax," Jetray called back, executing a perfect aerial evasion as several Chronos entities fired Chronodan beams in his direction. "The chrome accessories really bring out your eyes. Mock while you can," Vilgax replied with disturbing calm. "The Chronos Collective has shown me truths beyond your comprehension. Your Omnitrix contains more than just alien DNA now, it houses a power that rightfully belongs to beings capable of wielding it properly. And you think that's you?" Jetray fired another barrage of Neuroshock blasts, this time directly at Vilgax. The warlord made no attempt to dodge. Instead, he raised one hand, creating a localized temporal field that slowed the energy blasts to a near standstill before they could reach him. With his other hand, he made a dismissive gesture that reversed their trajectory, sending them back toward Jetray with increased velocity. My mastery of Chronodon energy is merely the beginning, Vilgax declared as Jetre barely evaded his own redirected attack. Lord Zenith has promised power beyond time itself to those who serve his vision. So you're working for Zenith now. Jetre maneuvered to draw Vilgax's attention away from Khalifla and Kale, who were systematically eliminating Chronos entities from the periphery of the formation. Didn't think you were the taking orders type. Zenith does not command, he elevates, Vilgax corrected. The convergence will create a reality where the strong rule without the limitations of dimensional boundaries. Those who aid in its completion will be granted dominion over the aspects they help secure. As they exchanged words, Rook and Kevin launched their assault from the ground. Rook's proto-tool fired specialized energy bursts calibrated to disrupt Chronodon fields, while Kevin, Haven G absorbed a rare mineral from Legerdemain, engaged the nearest Chronos entities in close combat. The battle quickly escalated, with Chronos entities deploying increasingly sophisticated temporal tactics. Some created localized time dilation fields that made movement through affected areas nearly impossible, while others accelerated themselves to speeds that left multiple afterimages as they attacked. Khalifla proved particularly effective against these tactics, her Super Saiyan transformation allowing her to match and exceed their enhanced speed. Her fighting style was aggressive but precise, each strike calculated to exploit weaknesses in the Chronos entity's shifting forms. Kale fought with different but equally effective tactics, using her energy control to create barriers that neutralized the time dilation fields. When three entities surrounded her, she momentarily accessed a more powerful transformation, her muscle mass increasing dramatically as her hair shifted to a brighter green. The surge of power was brief but devastatingly effective, scattering her opponents with a shockwave of pure energy. Jetre continued his aerial assault, using his enhanced maneuverability to avoid Vilgax's increasingly dangerous Chronodon attacks. The warlord demonstrated alarming new abilities, creating temporal duplicates of himself that attacked simultaneously from different angles, ge. Narrating fields where cause and effect operated in reverse, even briefly stopping time in localized pockets around his opponents. The divine catalyst has changed you, Tennyson, Vilgax observed as J. Etray narrowly avoided a Chronodon beam that would have aged him decades in seconds. Your transformations carry the energy signature of consciousness itself. Imagine what I could accomplish with such power. Not going to happen, Jetre declared, firing a concentrated neuroshock blast that momentarily breached Vilgax's temporal shield, scoring a direct hit that staggered the warlord. Vilgax recovered quickly, his expression darkening with rage. Enough games. The Chronos Collective didn't just enhance my body, they expanded my arsenal. He activated the device on his chest, which pulsed with intensifying energy. To Jetre's shock, Vilgax's form began to change, not a complete transformation, but a partial integration of alien DNA into his existing physiology. His right arm developed Stalin properties reminiscent of Diamondhead, while his left took on the fiery characteristics of Heatblast. His lower body adapted XLR-8's of velocity-enhancing structure, and a pair of wings similar to stinkflies erupted from his back. Behold the Chimerian chronometer, Vilgax announced with malevolent pride, capable of accessing and temporarily integrating the genetic samples of collected throughout my conquests. Not as elegant as your Omnitrix, perhaps, but effective nonetheless, especially when enhanced by Chronodon energy. The hybrid monstrosity that Vilgax had become launched into the air with surprising speed. Multiple alien abilities working in concert with his Chronodon powers to create a devastatingly effective combination. A crystalline projectile fired from his right arm as accelerated to near light speed by temporal manipulation, while his Heatblast arm generated flames that burned at temperatures hot enough to melt stone. Ben, he's accessing multiple powers simultaneously. Rook warned over the communication channel. Conventional tactics will be ineffective. Jetre barely avoided the combined assault, his enhanced speed pushed to its limits. Time to fight fire with fire, he decided, touching the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. The transformation washed over him in waves of green and blue-white light. When it cleared, Ultimate Echo stood in Jetre's place, but dramatically enhanced by the divine catalyst. The evolved Sonorosian's blue mechanical body now incorporated flowing patterns of divine energy that connected his sonic discs in complex configurations. The discs themselves had evolved, each one containing miniature galaxies of energy that pulsed in perfect harmony with his core consciousness. Sonic Revolution. Ultimate Echo Echo announced, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated across multiple dimensions simultaneously. He immediately deployed his sonic discs in a spherical formation around Vilgax, each one precisely positive. One to create a perfect acoustic interference pattern. When activated, the discs generated not just sound waves but harmonized divine energy that directly countered the chronoton fields Vilgax was manipulating. Impossible. Vilgax growled as his temporal advantages were neutralized within the sonic sphere. The divine catalyst shouldn't respond to such crude manipulations. You still don't get it, do you? Ultimate Echo Echo replied, directing the sonic discs to contract their formation gradually. The catalyst isn't just power to be controlled, it's consciousness itself, responding to intent and harmony. Vilgax roared in frustration, unleashing a desperate combination attack, heat blast flames, diamond head crystals, and chronoton energy all directed at his opponent simultaneously. The assault was powerful but uncoordinated, lacking the harmonious integration that characterized Ben's enhanced transformations. Ultimate Echo Echo countered with a perfectly tuned sonic attack, each F. frequency calibrated to disrupt specific aspects of Vilgax's offensive. The divine energy infusing his powers allowed for unprecedented precision, neutralizing the threat without excessive force. Meanwhile, Kale and Kale had systematically eliminated most of the Chronos entities, their coordinated fighting style proving remarkably effective against the time manipulators. Rook and Kevin secured the perimeter, preventing any remaining entities from escaping to report back to their collective. Seeing his advantage evaporating, Vilgax made a tactical decision. He deactivated the Chimerian chronometer, reverting to his base form enhanced only by chronoton energy. With a gesture of concentrated power, he created a temporal distortion directly behind himself, a localized rift that would allow retreat. This encounter was merely reconnaissance, Tennyson, he declared, backing toward the distortion. I've confirmed what the collective suspected. The divine catalyst has bonded completely with the Omnitrix. Lord Zenith will be most interested in this development. Tell Zenith he can come for the catalyst himself, Ultimate Echo Echo challenged, maintaining the sonic sphere but unable to completely prevent Vilgax's retreat without risking dimensional instability. Oh, he will, Vilgax promised with disturbing confidence. The harvest of worlds proceeds according to design. Your resistance is merely data collection. With those ominous words, Vilgax stepped backward into the temporal distortion, which collapsed immediately after his passage, preventing pursuit. The remaining Chronos entities, cut off from their leader, began to destabilize, their chrome forms losing cohesion without the coordinating influence of the collective. Within minutes, they had dissolved into PUD/DLES of metallic liquid that evaporated into the dimensional fabric of Legerdemain. Ultimate Echo Echo reverted to Ben with a flash of green and blue light, the extended battle having drained Signif. I can't energy from both him and the Omnitrix. The device pulsed with increased intensity, as if the confrontation had somehow accelerated its integration with the divine catalyst. Everyone okay? He asked as the team regrouped. We are uninjured, Rook confirmed, though his prototool showed signs of damage from chronoton exposure. However, I am concerned by Vilgax's enhanced capabilities. No kidding, Kevin agreed, reverting from his absorbed form. Since when can he use multiple alien powers like that? The Chimerian chronometer, Ben explained grimly, must be something he developed with Chronos technology. Based on his previous attempts to replicate the Omnitrix, his combat effectiveness was impressive, Kale acknowledged as she powered down from her Super Saiyan state. But unrefined. He's accessing power without true understanding, force without harmony. Which gives us an advantage, Kale added thoughtfully. His connection to the chronoton energy is artificial, imposed rather than integrated. Unlike your bond with the divine catalyst, which is becoming more natural with each transformation. Ben nodded, considering this perspective. You're right, Vilgax is using the power. But it's not using him, not in the same way the divine energy is working with the Omnitrix. A critical distinction, Rook agreed. But his alliance with Zenith and the Chronos Collective remains deeply concerning. At least now we know what we're up against, Ben concluded. And what Zenith is willing to offer his lieutenants to secure their loyalty. They began the journey back to the Bastion, all of them processing the implications of this new development. Ben found himself walking beside Kale, who seemed lost in thought. "Something on your mind?" he asked. She glanced at him, then away, her natural reticence briefly reasserting itself before she found her voice. "Your fighting style, it's adapting. When you first transformed with the divine energy, you used it primarily as a power boost. Today, you integrated it more naturally, using it to enhance precision and control rather than just raw output." "I didn't consciously plan that," Ben admitted, surprised by her observation. "That's significant," she explained. "True mastery begins when power becomes an extension of intent rather than a tool to be consciously directed. It's the first step toward the state Khalifah mentioned, ultra instinct." Quote, Ben considered this thoughtfully. "You seem to understand these concepts well." A shadow crossed her expression. "I have experience with power that operates beyond conscious control. My berserker form is driven purely by instinct, overwhelming force without direction. It took years to develop even limited control over it." "That green transformation you used briefly during the battle?" Ben asked. She nodded. "A controlled version of it. My full berserker state is much more destructive and much harder to control." "Sounds familiar," Ben said with a wry smile. "I've had a few transformations over the years that came with serious control issues. Ghost Freak, Way Big, Alien X. How did you master them?" Kale asked with genuine interest. "Practice, experience, and accepting that control isn't always about dominating the power. Sometimes it's about working with it, understanding its nature." He glanced at the Omnitrix. "Especially with the Omnitrix, it's not just a tool. It's got its own sort of consciousness, I guess. Working with it works better than fighting against it." Kale's expression brightened with understanding. "That's exactly the principle behind mastering key control in our universe. Energy responds better to harmony than domination." Their conversation was interrupted as they reached the bastion's perimeter, where Gwen awaited with evident concern. "We detected the battle," she explained as they approached. "Are you all right?" "We're fine," Ben assured her. "Vilgax got away, but we handled his Chronos friends." "Vilgax has allied with Zenith," Rook informed her more precisely, "and acquired technology that allows him to temporarily access multiple alien DNA samples simultaneously, enhanced by chronoton energy." Gwen's expression darkened. "That's not good, but we've made a discovery that might help counter this new threat." She led them through the bastion to a chamber they hadn't used before, a circular room with intricate patterns carved into its stone floor and walls. Eunice and Charmcaster waited inside, surrounding what appeared to be an ancient artifact placed on a central pedestal. The object resembled a crystalline orb approximately the size of a basketball, its surface etched with symbols similar to those in the Dragon God text. Within it, swirling energy patterns of various colors moved in hypnotic configurations, occasionally forming recognizable shapes before dissolving again. "What is that?" Ben asked, immediately sensing a connection between the orb and the divine energy in the Omnitrix. "The Harmony Sphere," Charmcaster explained, her tone unusually reverent. "An ancient artifact of legerdemain, said to have been created during the primordial age when dimensions first separated from one another." Quote, "We discovered it in a sealed vault beneath the bastion," Eunice added. Charmcaster sensed its energy signature responding to the divine catalyst in the Omnitrix. "It's beautiful," Kale whispered, clearly sensing something beyond the physical object. "More than beautiful, it's useful," Eunice continued. "The sphere appears designed specifically to help consciousness align with divine energy. It's essentially a training tool for achieving the harmonious state described in the texts." Ultra instinct, Khalifah identified immediately, approaching the sphere with newfound interest. "This could actually work. In our universe, achieving that state typically requires years of training under divine beings, but with a focus object like this, I'd accelerate the process significantly," Gwen finished. "Especially given Ben's unique connection to the divine catalyst." Ben studied the sphere thoughtfully. "So how does it work? Do I just touch it?" "Not exactly," Charmcaster cautioned. "The texts describe a meditation process using the sphere as a focus point. Your consciousness must align with the energy patterns within it, gradually, achieving resonance with the divine frequency. The process requires complete mental openness," Eunice explained further. "Surrendering conscious control while maintaining awareness, paradoxical states that characterize Ultra Instinct itself. Sounds challenging, Ben admitted, though his expression remained determined. It is, Khalifla confirmed. Even in our universe, only a handful of beings have ever mastered it. But with the divine catalyst already integrated into the Omnitrix, and this sphere to guide the process, it's worth trying, Ben decided. If Vilgax is working with Zen, ITH and has access to Chronos technology, we need every advantage we can get. We should begin immediately, Eunice suggested. Based on the dimensional fluctuations we've been monitoring, the convergence is accelerating. Time is becoming increasingly precious. They established a training regimen immediately. Ben would work with the Harmony Sphere for extended periods, guided by Khalifla and Kale's knowledge of key manipulation and Charmcaster's understanding of the magical principles involved. Between sessions, he would practice channeling the divine energy in gradually increasing amounts, developing finer control with each attempt. Meanwhile, Rook, Gwen, and Kevin would continue monitoring dimensional stability and defending against incursions, while Eunice analyzed the data from the sphere sessions and Ben's transformations to identify patterns that might accelerate progress. 3 days passed in this manner, with incremental but significant improvements. Ben found that CH session with the Harmony Sphere deepened his connection to the Divine Catalyst, making its energy more responsive to his intent. His transformations continued to evolve, integrating the Divine Power more naturally with each alien's unique abilities. On the 4th day, during a particularly intense session with the Sphere, Ben experienced a breakthrough. As he meditated, focusing on the swirling patterns within the crystalline orb, he felt his consciousness expand beyond its normal boundaries. The distinction between himself and the energy flowing through him began to blur, creating a state of awareness unlike anything he had experienced before. Something's happening, Charmcaster observed from where she monitored the process. The divine energy is responding differently. Indeed, blue-white energy now flowing from the Omnitrix moved with unusual fluidity, forming patterns in the air around Ben that resembled both circuit diagrams and organic structures simultaneously. Most notably, a draconic silhouette occasionally flickered within the energy field, a representation of the dragon god consciousness beginning to manifest. He's achieving partial resonance, Khalifla confirmed, her experienced senses detecting the shift in energy quality. His consciousness is harmonizing with the divine catalyst. Ben himself was only vaguely aware of these observations. His experience had become increasingly internalized, a journey through layers of awareness that transcended normal perception. Within this expanded consciousness, he encountered something unexpected, a presence that felt both ancient and familiar. Observing him with benevolent interest, WHO seeks the dragon's path. A voice that wasn't quite a voice asked within his mind. Ben Tennyson, he answered instinctively, his thoughts forming the response without conscious effort. Why does the wielder seek harmony with that which existed before thought? The presence questioned. Images flashed through Ben's expanded awareness. Zenith emerging from the dimensional rift, the convergence spreading across multiple universes, the potential extinction of diversity and free will throughout reality. He didn't consciously choose these images. They simply arose in response to the question. Zenith, the presence acknowledged. The collector of potentials. The unifier WHO would erase distinction. Can you help me stop him? Ben's thought question carried all the determination that characterized his approach to heroism. I am not separate from you to help, the presence replied enigmatically. I am the awareness that underlies all consciousness. The dragon god is not an entity to be summoned but a state to be realized. Understanding dawned within Ben's expanded awareness. The divine catalyst wasn't merely a power source or a weapon. It was a fundamental aspect of consciousness itself, the awareness that existed before individual minds separated from the universal whole. Harmony between instinct and intent, the presence continued. Movement without thought, action without attachment. This is the ultra state beyond limitation. With these words, the presence seemed to dissolve, not departing, but integrating more fully with Ben's own consciousness. The boundaries between his awareness and the divine energy blurred further, creating a feedback loop of increasing harmony. In the physical world, the others watched in amazement as the energy around Ben intensified, the blue-white light taking on new qualities, more refined, more focused, yet paradoxically more relaxed in its movement. The Omnitrix pulsed in perfect rhythm with the patterns in the harmony sphere, achieving a synchronization that caused both to glow with increased brilliance. Then, suddenly, Ben opened his eyes. For a brief moment, they glowed with the same blue-white energy that infused the Omnitrix, containing galaxies of light that suggested awareness beyond normal human consciousness. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that resonated on multiple frequencies simultaneously. "I understand now," he said simply. "Understand what?" Gwen asked, having joined the session after sensing the energy spike from elsewhere in the bastion. "The divine catalyst," Ben explained, his voice returning to normal as the moment of perfect resonance passed. "It's not just energy to be controlled or directed. It's consciousness itself, the awareness that underlies all thought. Ultra instinct isn't a technique to be mastered, it's a return to a more fundamental state of being." "Did you achieve it?" Khalifla asked eagerly. "Not fully," Ben admitted, rising from his meditation position with newfound grace. "But I touched it, just for a moment. And I know the path now." "This is significant progress," Eunice noted, reviewing the data her instruments had collected during the session. "The divine energy responded to your consciousness with unprecedented harmony." Before they could discuss further, an alarm sounded throughout the bastion. Rook's voice came through the communication system with urgent clarity. "Multiple dimensional breaches detected. Chronos entities are converging on the bastion from all directions. Vilgax has been identified leading one assault force, and," he paused momentarily, "another group appears to be led by Chadwick, who has somehow escaped containment." "That's impossible," Gwen protested. "He was secured in a cell with magical and technological restraints. Nevertheless, he is currently approaching from the eastern perimeter, accompanied by Chronos entities with enhanced capabilities. They're making a coordinated attempt to acquire the divine catalyst," Ben realized immediately. "Zenith must have decided direct action is necessary. Are Vilgax convinced? It was time to stop observing and start taking," Kevin suggested as he joined them, already transformed into his absorbed metal state. "Either way, we need to defend the bastion," Ben decided. Gwen, Charmcaster, reinforce the magical barriers. Kevin, Rook, coordinate the stone guardians to establish defensive perimeters. Eunice, secure the harmony sphere and any other artifacts that might be targeted. "What about us?" Khalifla asked, already beginning to power up, her aura flickering with golden energy. "You, me, and Kale will take the fight directly to Vilgax and Chadwick," Ben replied, activating the Omnitrix. "Time to see if my training with the sphere has paid off." He selected Humungosaur, one of his most physically powerful aliens. The transformation that resulted demonstrated how far the integration with divine energy had progressed. The Vaxasaurian's massive form now featured intricate patterns of blue-white light flowing through his scaled hide-like rivers of divine fire. His eyes glowed with the same energy, and each movement left brief afterimages that suggested his actions existed across multiple temporal states simultaneously. Most notably, when he roared in preparation for battle, a brief silhouette of a dragon appeared in the energy surrounding him, the consciousness of the dragon god momentarily manifesting through his transformed state. "Let's show Vilgax and his Chronos friends what happens when you mess with multiple universes," Humungosaur declared, his voice carrying both tremendous power and newfound harmony. As they moved to defend the bastion against the coordinated assault, Ben felt the divine energy responding more naturally than ever before, guided by his intent without conscious direction. The path to Ultra Instinct had begun to open before him, offering a glimpse of the power that might yet save reality itself from Zenith's convergence. The battle for the divine catalyst, and for the future of all dimensions, was about to reach a new level of intensity. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.